Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
All right.
I forgot to breathe in there.
Nice helmet, Josh. Where'd you get that from?
Thank you. Here's my authentic Viking helmet that I got in Scandinavia when I was in the museum in
That is
Copenhagen.
actually the most authentic thing I think I've ever seen.
Except for it's not authentic to wear my glasses underneath it.
Why else would you wear the helmet to protect your glasses?
I mean, if you were going to wear a helmet, you better be able to see.
Yeah, that's a good point. What's up, everyone? You are watching / listening to the Command Zone podcast. I'm the non-helmeted host, Jimmy Wong.
How is it? It's Josh Lee Kwai. Okay, I'm going to take this off now.
Yeah, it doesn't look that comfortable,
Yeah,
but it does look
on.
cool. Kind of cool. Actually, I don't know if it looks that cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
See, I collect masks from whenever we go on our travels. I collect masks, but not all cultures have like a mask tradition.
Uh-huh.
So this is kind of the closest I could find. It's kind of a mask, right?
That's cool. You're like Sakashima of 1,000 helmets.
There you go.
All right, this is the second set review of 2021, and we are back on Kaldheim. Last time we reviewed all of the MDFCs, the gods that could be your commander, and this time we're going to review the rest of them because there are a ton of legendary creatures. So don't forget, check out that other episode if you want to see the rest of the set review.
Yeah, these are going to be all the commanders that can't flip over, or that don't flip over. They have nothing on the backside. They're just regular Magic cards. And if you want to get your hands on any of these cards, you can pre-order them right now at cardkingdom.com/commandzone. That's our affiliate link. They're our sponsors. We talk about them every single episode because they give you the best service. They get your stuff to you the fastest. It's in the best condition. If you want to get a booster box, a collector's booster, a set booster, whatever other kind of boosters they got, they have like 50 kinds now. You probably want to get all of them. cardkingdom.com/commandzone is the place to go.
Yep. And of course, UltraPro, big sponsor of the show, and someone that also goes in and makes the sickest playmats, the coolest wall scrolls, the sleeves, the dice, everything, the deck box. If you want to make your just battlefield look really metal and Viking-esque, now is the time to do it. You don't need to build a whole ship or go to Scandinavia and buy a helmet like Josh. You can do it from the comfort of your own home.
My battlefield currently looks the awesomest.
Yeah, it does actually. And it's on our old playmat, which was made by UltraPro. So we trust them, obviously, to keep our stuff safe. We've been using them for so many years now. If you want to support the show, UltraPro, also a sponsor.
Yeah, full disclosure, the helmet was not made by UltraPro.
No, that'd be
it
a
will
cool
protect your noggin, though.
Yeah.
All right, and the final way to support all of our content is directly if you go to patreon.com/commandzone. All kinds of cool perks, one of which is you get to see extra turns, which I believe when you're watching this just came out.
Whoa.
But if you were a patron, you would have seen it before everybody else. And then game nights, which I think hasn't come out yet.
You will see it before everyone else.
Yeah, so if you go join the Patreon right now, then you're going to get to see game nights before everybody else. So, and there's other perks like talking to Jimmy and I on the Discord each and every day. So again, patreon.com/commandzone is the way to join that.
And we shout out one lucky patron every single episode. We're like on number like 250 at this point, I feel like.
We've shouted out a lot of patrons, and this episode is dedicated to Josh Garza. Josh, you rock.
Yeah, good name, right?
Yeah, very good name. We want to say something really quick here before we get into the main episode.
Oh, yeah, right.
So if you remember, we did the Game Nights auditions last year. Late last year, we accepted the audition submissions. There are two different ways to submit. One is if you supported our Kickstarter, and then the other was if you were a patron. And we received like 1,000 audition submissions, which is a lot. So that's why it's taken so long for us to go through. But we have gone through that process. We're almost narrowed down to the winner. At this point, we haven't exactly picked, but we have it narrowed down to like our top 5 and 6. And we're making the promise that we're going to decide who the winners are, and we're going to announce them on the next episode of the podcast.
Exciting.
That's our Kaldheim set review, the In the 99 set review. So make sure if you submitted an audition that you tune into that episode so you can find out if you're going to be the next fan guest on Game Night.
I'm tuning in. I really hope my audition made it.
We had a lot of really good submissions. This year was harder than ever for sure.
I bet.
There was probably like, there was a lot. Out of the 1,000, I'd say there was 25 or 30 people we easily could be on the show. So everybody did a really good job. Unfortunately, we can't choose that many, so we just have to pick. Okay.
But if you're in that 25, 30, even if you audition at all, it's a tough thing to do. So we really do congratulate you and applaud you for just taking those steps. It's definitely a bit of a, jump into the water and you don't even know what's going to be there. So that's cool.
Jimmy, you don't know anything about auditioning, do you?
Oh, it's tough. So I really do feel for everyone, and great job, everyone.
Yeah, everybody did a great job. All right, so let's get into the Kaldheim more traditional commander review. We didn't know what to call this one. The best new traditional commanders, regular?
Non-gods, yeah, regular commanders, even though they're not regular because we got some spicy ones in here as well.
Yeah, I don't want to call them regular because a couple of these are definitely irregular.
Yeah, that sets a bad precedent. Sorry, you're the regular commanders. Oh, man. Notably, there are 2 of the mini precons, the mini commander decks for Kaldheim. We won't be discussing those 2 new commanders here. We're going to do budget upgrade videos like we always do for our commander decks, and so we'll talk about them more and break it down there.
Yeah, we're not going to... We just won't talk about them at all this episode. All right, let's get into it. Okay. We've got, what are there, like 21 of these to go
21, I believe, or 22.
Some are uncommon, so there'll probably be less to say about those. Let's start off with everybody's favorite, white.
Yay.
So there's only one mono-white regular traditional commander. It's...
Just give it some more adjectives.
Sigrid, God Favored. 1 white for a 2/2 legendary creature, human warrior. So 3 mana 2/2 has flash, also has first strike, and protection from god creatures.
Oh, very meta.
When Sigrid enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target attacking or blocking creature until Sigrid leaves the battlefield.
Okay, cool. What's the last part of the card?
No, that's it.
Oh, man. Okay, so this is similar to what white is very good at, which is exiling creatures. Cards like Fiend Hunter and Skyclave Apparition come to mind. Skyclave Apparition is actually really similar because when it leaves the battlefield, something happens with the card that was exiled in a way. This ultimately reads like a combat trick, though, right?
Yeah, and if it's in your command zone, that's not a very good combat trick, right? Because it's not really a trick.
Not at all.
Yeah, you're not tricking anyone.
I think this is a strict upgrade to Hixis Prison Warden, which is 3 white flash human soldier that whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, if Hixis enters the battlefield this turn, exile that creature until Hixis leaves the battlefield. This can at least get an attacking creature out of the way before it even touches you.
Right, you don't have to take the damage.
Yeah.
Also, it can be a attacking or blocking creature that somebody else is involved in combat that you're not involved with at all.
I could see that getting someone occasionally, but typically if you have a high value creature on the battlefield, you're not putting that anywhere near combat. That's just risky.
If Sigrid is in the command zone. So maybe this is a card that's just kind of better in the 99.
Yeah, for sure.
Just
it seems like it's got a
more
light
surprising, right?
Yeah, and first strike, right, in equipment decks seems pretty interesting, especially if you're attacking and you've got attack triggers like Wyleth or whatever, so you want them to stay alive. Oh, they block with their big thing, but it seems a little situational.
I don't like these, especially creature cards that when it leaves, the thing comes back.
Yeah.
Because creatures are just easy to kill and they die a lot. So it's a lot safer if it's on an enchantment because it's just more likely that's going to stick around, right?
Yeah, I mean, a board wipe gets their creature back, which doesn't seem great.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some shenanigans you can do where you like use Eldrazi Displacer so you can like get it back and flicker it a bunch of times. But I'd say as a mono white commander, you probably want to find some other colors to put before you put this card in the deck.
Yeah, I don't think this feels like it's first standard or something. Just aggressively costed, flash first strike doesn't matter too much to us.
Protection from god
creatures.
creatures.
It has flash. Yeah,
it's definitely
exactly.
a standard. Yeah,
it's like a standard plant.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's got to be a few, I think, in every set, and this one seems to be very much in like the Kaldheim world too. Sigrid, God Favored seems like it's a central character in the story, maybe.
All right, let's move on to blue. Blue has 2 monocolored commanders. I also want to apologize in advance that I'm probably going to pronounce a lot of these names wrong. I've been to Denmark, like I said, Iceland a couple of times, Sweden.
You're fluent.
I've learned that, my Scandinavian languages are very, very hard because they look like English and then you like say them phonetically and they're like, no. And then they say it and you're like, and then they say the word and you're like, what?
Was that
How did those letters correspond to those sounds? That's just not how I was raised. So
that's hilarious.
I apologize to everybody because I'm going to mangle these. I'm going to try my best, but it's going to be bad. So the next one is Inga Runais. It's 3 and a blue for a 3/3 legendary creature, human wizard. When Inga enters the battlefield, you scry 3.
Whoa.
So I can already tell it's good with Elegith.
Yep.
When Inga Runais dies, you draw 3 cards if 3 or more creatures died this turn.
Oh, okay. So this reads to a lot of people as board wipe protection. If you have Inga out, you pay 4 mana to get a cool scry 3. Maybe you abuse it because you have Elegeth Crossroads Augur, and then someone wipes the board. 3 creatures died, as did Inga, and boom, you draw 3 cards. So 4 mana draw 3, but it's very conditional, right?
Right, because what if they cast Merciless Eviction or what's the one that puts everything on the bottom of your library, or Cyclonic Rift? It doesn't do anything, right? So a lot of board wipes don't end up with creatures technically dying, even though it wipes. I mean, it's good against Toxic Delusion stuff, but
Interestingly, the if, where the word if appears in this text, actually makes a big difference because there's something called an intervening if in Magic. So if the card read, when Inga dies, if 3 or more creatures died this turn, draw 3 cards, then you wouldn't be able to respond to it. However, it goes, when Inga dies, can you actually read it again?
When Inga dies, comma, draw 3 cards if 3 or more creatures died this turn.
Right. So Inga's going to die. You'll see the trigger on the stack. And then if you have like a sack outlet, you can sack creatures to sort of fulfill that, what it needs. And then you'll draw 3 cards.
And that also makes it so that it will see the other creatures that die at the same time as it.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think this is a potential fit for a Marchesa, the Black Rose deck, because you're constantly sacrificing creatures. And that seems like...
And they all come back.
They all come back, right? And then you'll draw more cards. Inga will come back. You'll scry again.
Maybe any kind of Aristocrats deck that has blue in it would think about this then, because they're going to be like, okay, sack this last.
Right.
Some of them come back. Maybe this does too, but even if not, draw 3 cards is okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Kaikar's Wind's Fury is the one that a lot of people noticed online because you're making all the spirits that you're sacking for mana. But I think 4 mana is a little actually high.
Yeah.
Especially because the second half of it is so hard to fulfill.
I mean, if you want to just pay 4 mana to draw 3 cards, you can do that. It's not that hard, especially in blue, but a lot of colors can do that kind of thing. So you have to be able to like abuse it, and it's a lot of hoops to jump through to be able to draw 6 cards off this thing, right?
Yeah.
You have to jump through hoops just to draw 3 cards sometimes.
And then you're 3 creatures down, which doesn't seem great either. I was thinking if you maybe play this in an Animar deck, you cast it for 1 blue to scry 3, that could be worth it, because then at the very least, it just costs nothing.
Sure, but you're playing Animar.
Yeah.
Like, you get better than that. You could just play Muldrifter, right? Just draw the cards.
Yeah, it's a good point.
All right, let's go to the next one. It is also mono blue, a very cool one. This is a mythic rare.
Yeah, this one actually almost took up like half a page in terms of our notes on it.
We will probably discuss this one for roughly 3 to 4 times the amount we discuss most of these, because there's a lot going on here. It's Orvar, the All Form. 3 and a blue for a 3/3 legendary creature shapeshifter.
Oh.
Has changeling, which means it's all creature types.
Oh.
It says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets 1 or more other permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of one of those permanents. Permanents. You can copy lands. You can make land tokens.
Blue ramp, here we come.
Yep. It's crazy. I mean, all right. Sorry, I'm not done with the card yet. The second line of text, or the third line of text, whatever. When a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard this card, create a token that's a copy of target permanent.
Whoa, that's any permanent now, not ones that you control.
So if you have this in your hand and they make you discard, you get to just a free Clever Impersonator.
Wow.
Right? Which is pretty sweet. That's not going to come into effect that much when it's your commander, and I think we're going to see this as a commander a lot, because you really need the deck to be built around it to put it in your deck. It has to have a lot of instants and sorceries that target your own stuff, specifically lands, right? Because the ability to copy your land is ramp. If I cast a spell and it puts a land into play, even if it's a token copy of a land, you have now just ramped, and all you had to do was target one of your lands with an instant or sorcery to do that. Jimmy, are there a lot of ways to target your own lands in blue?
Oh my gosh, there are ways to target everything in blue, and specifically ways that are typically not played. So this card opens up a whole just mansion of cards here. So Twiddle is sort of the main one. It's a blue instant for just a blue, and you may tap or untap target artifact, creature, or land. So you could tap, cast this, untap it, make another land. You're up on mana, and you just
gain 2 mana and put a land into play. That's better than rampant growth.
For 1 blue, too. That's really, really crazy. We'll just go down the list here. There's so many things here. I think Whim of Volrath, unfortunately, not a cheap card anymore.
How much is it?
It's like in the 20s, 30s. It may be because of Orvar, maybe because it's just a very powerful card, actually. It's a blue instant again for 1 blue, but it has buyback for 2. So you can pay an additional 2 as you cast the spell. If you do, you just buy back the card into your hand and as it resolves. So this one just says change the text of target permanent by replacing all instances of one color word with another one, blah, blah. So you can change like something that says non-red creature to non-green creature, or if it says planeswalk, you can change it to swamp walk. You're rarely going to do that because you can target a permanent with this and not actually have that part of the spell resolve. So for 3 mana, you get a rebuy-backable
make a land.
Rampant growth, yeah. But just on board rampant growth, yeah.
Is that a sorcery or an instant?
This one is an instant, so that might be why.
It's an instant?
Yeah. If you have 6 mana open at the end of someone's turn, you don't need 6 mana. You need 4 mana, because 3 cast it.
Oh my god, because it gives you 1 mana back. It actually only costs 2?
Yeah.
So if you have 5 mana and you're just sitting there with a counter spell or whatever,
you get 2 more lands.
And then nothing happens that you want to counter or whatever, then you're just like, boom, ramp twice. And then next turn, that means I can ramp 3 times or 4 times. And there are a million other cards that also can target your lands. It's not like just that one. And some of them have buyback too.
Yeah, Clock Spinning has buyback for 3 as an instant, so it costs 1 more in the last one. But this one is like choose a counter on target permanent or suspend a card. You can remove a counter or put another counter on it. Again, you don't need to have a counter because it says choose a counter on target permanent. So that is the only thing that matters when you're casting these spells is you have a permanent that can be a target. And then it goes, oh, there are no counters? Who cares? Mind Games, and it's an instant with buyback for 2 in the blue. It's tap target artifact, creature, or a land. Magical Hack is another one that changes the words on the spell of permanent. Yeah.
You're like, oh, that swamp now says island.
Yeah, but this one only costs 1 blue. It's an instant, doesn't have buyback. There's just so many cards here that do stuff. Aquatex Will lets you put flood counters on a land for 1 blue. Again, 1 in the blue Glamour Die does the same thing, and this one has Retrace, so you can cast it from your graveyard by discarding a land card. So if you draw a land, you just make another land. Jeez, it goes on forever. Churning Eddy, Early Frost. Early Frost is interesting. It's 1 in the blue for an instant, tap up to 3 target lands. Now, this is 1 or more, so you can't choose 3 of your own lands, but...
Do 1 of yours and 2 of theirs?
Exactly. Your upkeep, boom.
Because remember, Orvar says, if it targets 1 or more other permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of 1 of those permanents.
Yep. It doesn't let you go nuts with that card, fortunately.
But still, I mean, anything that's multiple targets, if you're like, target 3 of your things, 1 of mine, you'll make the copy, but also do the bad thing to all their stuff.
Yep. And then there's cards like Political Trickery, which I didn't even know this card existed.
These cards are really good because they cantrip, right? Oh, no, this isn't a
cantrip.
No,
this one's a cantrip. These are actually, it's a 2 in the blue for a sorcery. Exchange control of target land you control and target land and opponent's controls. So you can give them an island and they can't use it, and you take their best land and you copy the land that you were trying to trade to them.
You're like, I take your Gaia's Cradle, give you an island, but I actually create a token that's a copy of my island when I do that.
So you get both.
So I didn't lose anything, and you lost your Gaia's Cradle, basically.
Yeah. Shifting Borders does the same thing. And then there's a bunch that cantrip. These are really good. Yep. Shimmering Mirage turns a land into another basic land type, but then you draw a card. Enervate does a similar thing to tap artifact, creatures, or lands, and you draw a card too. So again, any permanent. So you can copy a creature, an artifact, an enchantment if you can do something with it. You wrote down Leap, which I thought was great because it's another cantrip, but it gives
only
a creature flying until end of turn, so you can swing with that, and then you have a blocker.
Yep.
Yippee.
You can also combine any of the buyback stuff with like Baral, Chief of Compliance, Sapphire Medallion to just cut down on that mana cost.
Yeah, and then when you add that on to casting or copying cards that are like mana rocks, big mana rocks like Gilded Lotus, then you basically find ways, if you have buyback cards, to go infinite. You just make 50 Gilded Lotuses or whatever.
Yeah, so when we originally wrote this down, like that whole first paragraph is just how do you copy lands.
Right.
And then also you're going to eventually, because that's the most exciting thing, like 1 mana Rampant Growth is crazy. Rampant Growth is already the most played card in the format, and this is a better version of it if Orvar's out, right? Twiddle just becomes way better than Rampant Growth. It costs, like, it untaps the land, so it costs 0 mana, and so it's a 0 mana put a land into play.
Yeah, and deck thinning is not really a huge thing in Commander, so it doesn't even matter that on that behalf. Yeah.
So it'd be very easy to get excited about the lands, which we are. Oh, there's 2 more lands I want to talk about. Speaking of which, there are lands that care about how many of those type of lands are in play. So there's Cloud Post and Glimmer Post, and they are locust lands, and Cloud Post taps for the amount of mana equal to the amount of locusts that you have.
Each locust on the battlefield,
on the battlefield. So if you copy that like 7 times, each of them...
Wow, tap for like 7.
Right, so if you have 2 of them, they each tap for 2, and if you have 3 of them, they're each tap for 3. So making copies of Cloud Post is insane.
Yeah.
But you don't have to just copy lands. Rachel Weeks, Game Night, who's also on the next episode of Game Nights, and we're going to talk about her commander in a little bit here that she played on the episode. But she's been building the Orvar deck and talking about it on Twitter, and she mentioned how good Mirage Mirror is in this deck. Now, we know Mirage Mirror is a staple and good in every deck. Jimmy taught me that.
This is so good now that I realize what she's doing with it.
But being able to copy something with Mirage Mirror that your opponents control and then target it, because Orvar can only cares about you targeting stuff you control.
Oh, wow.
Means now Mirage Mirror turns into the ability to make a token copy of anything anybody else has.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Artifact, creatures, or enchantments. And it stays that way, right? Because it loses that until end of turn bit.
Right. Your Mirage Mirror will turn back, but the token copy will just be the thing.
Jeez.
Forever. Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
You were kind of talking about this, Jimmy, but I think boomerang effects are really, really good in this deck. So blue has a bunch of effects that are basically either return target permanent to its owner's hand, or they have a bunch that are return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Most of these cost 2 mana, although Chain of Vapor costs 1 mana, doesn't target lands. But imagine you have Gilded Lotus out, and you tap it for 3 blue, and you target it with Boomerang, and you make a token copy of Gilded Lotus. And that Gilded Lotus goes back to your hand.
Right.
And you have one floating. And then you recast it with the Gilded Lotus that you just played and 1 mana. And now it taps. And you could make like, you're losing 1 mana every time. But if you have like 7 or 8 mana, you might be able to make like 6 Gilded Lotuses. And then if you just untap the next turn, you're probably going to win that game because you have so much mana. Like you could just take one turn where you just go, I do this 5 times and make 5 Gilded Lotuses.
Not to mention, if you have a Valknori, you can do it at instant speed. If you have Brawl out, then you will be getting mana because it makes the mana cost less. Yeah.
Thrawn Dynamo might be able to just do the same thing. Chromatic Orrery actually will probably make you go infinite in that case.
Yeah, I think that one's actually a legendary artifact, so that might not work.
Oh, that doesn't work. Oh.
It's okay, though. It's still so powerful.
And then just other stuff you can copy. Amphem Mutineer was one of the things I thought of first, because think of how good it is. Amphem Mutineer comes in, exiles something, gives him a salamander, and then you target it with Boomerang, make a token copy, exile something else, and now the Amphem Mutineer is back in your hand, which you can recast and exile something else.
Yep. You also wrote down Snapcaster Mage and Torrential Gearhulk, which are some of the best cards in the format to recur and replay over and over again.
Look at how this works with Torrential Gearhulk, for example. You flash it in, targeting your Boomerang. The Boomerang targets the Torrential Gearhulk, makes a copy of Torrential Gearhulk, bounces the original back to your hand.
Cast something else.
Copy of Torrential Gearhulk copies something else in your...
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, exactly.
And guaranteed you're going to have a lot of spells that are these types of like target things on your battlefield. So again,
Whittles and everything, right?
There's got to be ways to go infinite with this deck, like 15 different ways.
Archaeomancer and Mnemonic Wall, they get the instant sorceries back to your hand, which could be better than Torrential Gearhulk or Snappy because they exile the instants after you use them, which Archaeomancer and stuff doesn't. Mystic Sanctuary is a land that when it enters the battlefield, if you have enough islands, you can choose an instant or sorcery.
No, it does it regardless. Oh, well, you're right.
Yeah, you have to have 3 islands.
You have to have 3 islands, it enters the battlefield untapped, and then you put a target instant or sorcery from your graveyard on top of your library. Yeah.
You just boom at instant speed. Before I'm going to make a copy of my Mystic Sanctuary. I'm going to put this on top of my library. That's a way to go infinite, maybe with extra turn spells. You know, if you don't care if you have friends or not.
Yeah, you have Precognition Field, which lets you play in blue. That lets you play cards, instant sorceries off the top of your library, which is probably just good in this deck anyway.
And that's a way to go infinite with Mystic Sanctuary, because if you can find a way to cast that top card for free, then now you can just copy Mystic Sanctuary over and over again and keep putting that thing back on your library.
You're right. Yeah. Another big thing too is all the MDFCs. It's a great way to bounce one that you played as a land, get it back to your hand. Now you can cast it as a spell, but you still have the land left over.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because you want to bounce those. Yeah, that's amazing. I also think things that target multiple things are really good. So Sublime Epiphany, Mystic Confluence. Think of how good Sublime Epiphany is, especially in a deck that has Archaeomancer and Mnemonic Wall that you're making tokens of, because you're like, play Sublime Epiphany, counter your thing, bounce this thing of mine, make a copy of this other thing, and then get the Sublime Epiphany back because it's an Archaeomancer or a Mnemonic Wall. You know what I mean? And now I'm sitting there, you know, Torrential Gearhulk, this other thing, because that's what I made a copy of.
That's crazy. Anytime you create something like this, says create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, you get 2 copies.
And one of them bounces the spell you just cast back to your hand.
Yeah, right.
So you didn't use a card at all, and you just created all this extra value. Mystic Confluence can do the same thing. Bounce 2 of their creatures, one of yours, end up with Mystic Confluence back in your hand at the end of it, that kind of thing. You know, or counter their spell, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think anything that targets multiple things like that. Yeah.
This is so powerful. I like this with both of the Sakashimas as well, because these are cards that enter as copies of other stuff, so you can just, you know...
make copies of Orvar.
Copies of other copies, copy an Orvar. Oh
Imagine
my gosh,
I twiddle my land and get 3 lands or something.
Oh!
Yeah.
At that point,
also, I can twiddle my Sakashima.
Right.
And now make a 4th copy of Orvar, a 5th copy of Orvar. No, actually, if I twiddle my Sakashima, I have 4 Orvars. If I twiddle again, I have 8 Orvars.
Jeez Louise.
Because Sakashima makes the legendary rule not count.
Yeah. You just make 1 billion Orvars.
And then the next one, it's like every twiddle I cast or boomerang I cast makes 10 lands, which means we see where this goes.
Instant win at that point, yeah. If you are going to play this in the 99, Volrath the Shape Stealer, because we did talk about Whim of Volrath, this is a card that becomes a copy of another creature with a counter on it, and then it's a 7/5 and has the ability to become another copy. So it becomes a copy, you have Orvar out, you can copy that and it becomes something else, and then your original turns back. So a lot of shenanigans you could do here.
It's kind of like Mirage Mirror.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And then don't forget, you got enchantments, planeswalkers, all that good stuff. There is a card called Psychic Corrosion. That's an enchantment. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent mills 2 cards. You have all these cantrips. You just make a bunch of Psychic Corrosions. Just mill everyone out.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting.
Orvar is freaking sweet. You're going to be able to do some crazy stuff. I think there's probably a very, very powerful version of this deck too.
Yeah.
With, a decent
There's
amount of
got to
counters.
be a competitive type version of this deck.
Yeah. I don't know if it's quite CDH, although it probably is because just mono blue in general can get there because of Lab Maniac. And I bet there's a way to like draw your whole deck and then Thassa's Oracle, sorry, not Lab Maniac.
Right.
And win. But
And you can hold up every counter spell in the game pretty much.
yeah. But it's also very sweet to just be able to make token copies of your lands. I want to do that real bad.
I mean, I just can't believe that blue. I can't believe this card doesn't say non-land permanent. That just baffles my mind.
Yeah. All right.
He isn't. Oh wait, one last thing. He's a changeling, so if you have a tribal deck, he can guaranteed go into any tribal deck that can play blue. Just saying.
All right. On to black. It's Varagoth, Blood Sky Sire. 2 and a black for a 2/3 demon rogue. Has death touch. Is this our first instance of Boast?
I think so, because we talked about it last set review, but we never actually saw an instant of it.
Okay, so this card has Boast. So Boast, you pay 1 and a black, and target player searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top of it.
I'm sorry, what?
But you can activate this ability only if a creature attacked this turn and only once each turn. So you can only Boast once per turn. But then, yeah, you choose someone to Vampiric Tutor, basically.
Yeah, pretty exciting because you can obviously do this to yourself. It's a tutor on an attacking creature. It's got death touch, so it's going to be hard to block. This seems like a slam dunk in Tymna the Weaver because you get to attack with them, put the card on top, and then Tymna lets you draw that card immediately that same turn.
That's pretty sweet.
Same thing with Marchesa's the Black Rose. This is the kind of card that you want to be able to, because people are going to block the heck out of this
But you don't care because it's going to come back.
Yeah. You can even use Reconnaissance on a card like this because it will. You can literally attack and then immediately use it before any blockers or anything declared, so you can then take it out of combat with other means.
Maze of Ith.
Yep, you Maze of Ith, yeah. Yuriko the Tigress Shadow, I think, is really sweet with this because you get to Commander Ninjutsu Yuriko for this card, but you've boasted, so you put the highest CMC thing you want on top of your deck. Yuriko smacks them, flips it over, and does damage to everyone.
Oh, you stack it. So on attack, Yuriko... Oh, yeah.
On
you
attack,
do this
you
first.
boast, yeah.
And then Yuriko, it's unblocked. And then, boom, you put Expropriate there or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty exciting.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah,
Jeez.
and if you have opposition agent out and then you make someone else tutor their library, because this is any player, then
you steal their best card?
Steal their best card, yeah.
It's a pretty good play just to get the best card so that it's not in their deck anymore, especially if they're like they've got like a combo win or something. You can just take out like the scary card.
Oh, and extra combat steps, again, not a combo with this because you can only boast once a turn on each card.
It's not once per attack. Or
yeah. And then I was thinking, this is actually pretty interesting politicking. Like, hey, just take a couple damage. I'll let you find your best thing because so-and-so is going out of control over here.
Yeah, you got a board wipe in your deck? Okay, I'll do this if you promise to get your board wipe.
Yeah,
it also kind of blinks their next turn.
Right, yeah, because they have to do that. It's like a Wish Claw Talisman type effect, but you don't have to necessarily give them the effect.
Somebody said Obnixilis the Unshackled, the one that deals a bunch of damage when you search your
anytime
library.
you search,
Yeah, that's because you force them to search.
And they also have to sack a creature, so they lose 10 life, sack a creature, and then they search for something.
Problem is they're going to search for something to kill Obnixilis, probably.
Yeah, probably, jeez. But if there's a way for them to, that take 10 damage out of nowhere, that could be a big game, especially when we start with 40.
Or they could be dead.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, that's cool. All right, moving on to Jimmy's favorite color. We're now in red.
Woohoo!
This can't be how you pronounce this card, but this is how I'm going to say it. So it's Arnie Broken Brow.
It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Arnie Broken Brow, yeah. Broken Brow.
Brow, there we go, yeah.
But he's Austrian. He's not Scandinavian, right?
No.
I think.
It's a mountainous region.
It's fairly close
Someone
by world
is going to get
standards.
so upset.
Yeah.
Me saying Austria is like Scandinavia.
There's a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger references because we did do the whole "Ice to see you" for Jordan. I mean, he was our governor, so.
Yeah, true. Someone's got to make that an altar at some point. So.
Yeah. All right. Arnie Broken Brow is 2 and a red for a 3/3 human berserker, has haste, and also has boast, but for only 1 generic mana. And it says, you may change Arnie's base power to 1 plus the greatest power among other creatures you control until end of turn. So if you have a 5/5 out, you attack with Arnie and you pay 1 and he'll become 6 power. A 6/3. That's
Okay.
it. That's all it does.
There's like a couple of things you can do. There's a card called Phyrexian Devourer, also not cheap because I'm guessing CEDH or something uses this. It's a 6 mana 1/1, and then when its power is 7 or greater, you sacrifice it, but you can just freely exile the top card of your library to put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the exiled cards convert the mana cost. So you could just stack this up to like a 30/30, have Arnie change into it. You lose the Phyrexian Devourer, but then Arnie hits. But this is a 6 mana artifact, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, hey, good job coming up with something you could do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all those red cards that kind of like come into play. They're big, they have haste, and they usually like you have to sacrifice them at the end of turn. So there's like Ball Lightning, Cosmic Larva, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, you can just hit people for a lot, I guess.
Yeah, so you just play it and it has a lot of power, so Arnie becomes big power. The problem is Arnie doesn't pump his own toughness, so they just block and then Arnie dies, right? They're like, okay, well, that's scary. I'll block it.
Well, how about Greven Predator Captain?
Oh, that's interesting. You pay the 1, and then you sack it and draw the cards?
Yeah, and then the creature that you didn't want to sack, that's like a 7/5 or a 7/3 for 3 mana or whatever. Maybe it sticks around for another turn. So you kind of
like that. Actually, in my Greven deck, this sort of the threshold that I judged cards by were they 3 mana? If they were 3 CMC, they had to have at least 5 power. And Arnie will have 6 because Greven has to be out, right? And Greven's a 5/5, so.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So automatically, even if you don't have anything else, this gives you at least 6 on
right,
3
which is
mana
good
card.
for 3 mana.
Yeah, well, I guess 4 because you have to pay the 1 to boast it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It does cost the 1 mana, and that is a thing.
That is a thing.
Yeah.
All of you Barbarian Warrior Berserker fans, Lovisa Cold Eyes is the stereotypical 3 red legendary creature 3/3 that gives them all +2/+2 and has haste. So maybe Arnie finds a spot in that very weak tribal deck.
Maybe it does. All right, let's move on to the next mono red commander, which is very cool. And Jimmy, this is the deck that you're playing in the next game nights, right?
It is. I'm so excited about this card. It may be one of the most powerful mono red commanders ever printed.
Jimmy, back to his mono red roots for game nights here.
I need to build another mono red deck.
Yeah, this deck is actually quite good, quite strong. It's got a lot of text on it. Here we go. Magda, Brazen Outlaw, 1 and a red, so 2 mana for a 2/1 Dwarf Berserker. It says other dwarves you control get +1/+0.
Okay.
Whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create a treasure token.
Okay.
So Magda is a dwarf, so when she attacks, you'll get a treasure token. But any dwarf you attack with, so you can make 6 treasure if you or 7 if you attack with the 7 dwarves.
When it becomes tapped.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. When it becomes tapped. Good point.
Yeah.
Also, it says sacrifice 5 treasures. Search your library for an artifact or dragon card. Put that card onto the battlefield.
Oh.
Then shuffle your library. And Magda can do this as many times as you have 5 treasures. So if you have 15 treasure, you can do this 3 times, and you can do it at instant speed.
Yeah, this is nuts. Any artifact or dragon. Artifact is the big one, as those typically are the most powerful sort of cards across every deck. And the fact that it is not on attack, it's when they get tapped, means that there's a lot of things you can do here. So the internet went a buzz. The cards that everyone's talking about are Dwarven Blood Boiler, which is a red dwarf that just says tap and untap dwarf you control. Target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So you can just freely tap dwarves, including itself.
You don't even have to care about the +2/+0 part. It can be on end step before your turn. Boom, make 5 treasures or whatever. Yeah.
Chiron Negotiations, 2 red for an enchantment. Tap an untapped creature you control. This deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. This is just actually a pretty good card if you're doing any sort of token shenanigans too.
It's pretty sweet because when it also says create a treasure, like that's amazing.
I actually like equipment in this deck because there's one called Leonin Bola. It's a 1 mana artifact with a 1 equip cost, and it says equip creature has tap, unattach Leonin Bola, tap target creature. So you pay 1 to tap this, attaches to a dwarf. You tap it to unattach the Leonin Bola, and then you can use it to tap another dwarf, and then you can tap it and you can equip it to something else. But that right there gets you 2 treasures just off of like 1 activation, which is pretty cool.
It's also pretty good if you're like, before combat, I tap down your big scary thing so it can't attack me.
Yeah, exactly. So
and I get a treasure.
And it only costs 1 to re-equip, so that's pretty decent, all things considered. Vehicles seem pretty good in this deck too, because every time something has a crew cost, you can tap any number of creatures you control total power X or more, where X is the crew cost.
Yeah, so, you can overcrew.
Yeah, you can overcrew. You can stick every dwarf you want into a smuggler's copter or a mobile garrison. When it attacks, untap another target artifact or creature you control. So that again has nice. A little bit of like shenaniganery you can do around there.
Because you can tap him to crew it, get the treasure, and then untap one of the dwarfs to get another treasure later.
Yeah, and especially if you have like Chiron Negotiations out, there's lots of things you can do here, just to get extra value out of all of it. And then making a ton of treasure seems pretty good in this deck. Brass's Bounty is a 6 and a red sorcery. For each land you control, you create a treasure token. Dockside Extortionist, which is just absurdly expensive now, does the same thing. Obviously gets you a bunch of treasure. There's a new card, really exciting. We'll definitely talk about this in the set review, but it's called Goldspan Dragon.
Yeah, this is cool.
3 red for a 4/4 flyer with haste. Whenever Goldspan Dragon attacks or becomes the target of a spell, you create a treasure token. And treasures you control have tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 2 mana of any one color.
They create double.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
In this deck, I think you don't mind necessarily sacking the treasures just to ramp early.
No, I think that's what you do early, and then later when you've got enough, they kind of become the plan of like, all right, now if Magda's around on the end step before my turn, you better all be scared, because think of some of the artifacts that can come out. Blightsteel Colossus can come out. You know, any dragon. Like, those are some of the scariest creatures in Magic, and they're coming out with virtual haste.
Yeah, and Mycosynth Lattice is the big one that everyone talks about, because it's a 6-mana artifact. All permanents are artifacts, and then all the cards that aren't on the battlefield, spells and permanents, are colorless.
So it allows you to get any card in your deck now.
Yeah, well, they are all permanents are artifacts, and they're not all cards that aren't on the battlefield are colorless. So
it doesn't turn them into artifacts if they're not in your deck.
But this is just like one of those things where you put it out there, everyone kind of just like, and you just have like a Vandal Blast. You just wreck people's lives because it turns their lands into artifacts too. Purphoros,
the bronze blooded, which is the new Purphoros, seems pretty good because you're going to have a bunch of big dragons in the deck. So you don't want to have those stuck in your hands.
Yeah, and Purphoros specifically also does artifacts or red creature cards, and not many people can put sneak attack into every deck, so that's a great replacement for it. I even thought Soul of New Phyrexia, one of my old favorite top artifact cards, would be great just because it's a 6/6 trampler that you can pay 5 to give your permanents indestructible until end of turn. So you already have that. Usually with 5 treasures, if you're in a really tough spot, you can do that to just give everything, anti-board wipe protection, and you're going to need a little bit of that in this deck.
Yeah, it gives Magda the utility, not just, hey, I can bring out something scary. Also, I can do some tricky stuff like save my board from a board wipe.
Yeah, Phyrexian Triniform is a huge artifact creature too, from Commander Legends. And then dragon-wise, Nullspine Dragon, it's a great card to get out at instant speed because this is a 5 red dragon. When it enters the battlefield, you may discard your hand and draw cards equal to the damage dealt to target opponent this turn. So let's say you have a massive turn, everyone's attacking, you make a bunch of treasures, you do 10 damage to someone, you can fetch out this dragon, discard your hand, draw 10 cards.
Yeah, refill your hand. So now Magda has a way to draw you cards, which is pretty sweet.
Yep. Steel Hellkite is an artifact and a dragon at the same time. And then if we're talking about dwarves, tons of dwarves. 7 dwarves is a card that you can put 7 of in your deck, and it's just 2 red for a 2/2, 1 and a red for a 2/2 dwarf. It gets +1/+1 for each other creature named 7 dwarves you control. That's if you're just trying to fill dwarven space, I guess.
Well, and also the fact that they can get bigger. Like 2 3/3s is actually pretty good because you want to be able to, like...
And they become 4/3s with Magda out, too.
Yeah, and you want to be able to attack because that's going to be the main way you're going to be able to get tapped. Hopefully you have this, an equipment or something, but if you don't have that out...
Yeah, you're going to...
But early in the game, they're 2-drops. You're usually going to be able to attack.
Yeah. Dwarven Recruiter is like Goblin Recruiter, but for dwarves. So there's a lot of fun stuff to do here. I think this deck definitely has the potential to, like, very early, very quickly, just get 5 treasures out, go nuts, and then blammo. Like, you can fetch out something crazy on, like, turn 3 or 4, depending on how fast you ramp this out. And again, like Josh said, they have Ritual Haste, because if you look at Magda, it says you can bring it out at instant speed. Very hard to interact with.
Yeah, pretty sweet. Pretty cool deck. I like Magda quite a bit.
Yeah, I do too.
It covers one of Red's deficiencies, which of course is why the deck is so good, because all of a sudden you don't have to worry about the ramp as much. That's covered.
In a lot of ways, you might even be able just to play Magda as a creature in any mono red deck, because if you swing with it once, you get a treasure.
True, yeah.
But
I think you want some other dwarves. Yeah, you want some other dwarves to really get crazy with it.
And then I like it too because you can play it pretty casually. You can go more competitive with it. You can just be like, big dragons only. Just go that route too,
It scratches the Timmy itch.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's go on to green here. Everyone was very excited. Excited? I think some people were excited about the return here of Vorinclex.
Craig was excited.
Monstrous Raider. Craig was excited, and I'm going to hold it up because there is a Phyrexian version
with the Phyrexian text.
With the Phyrexian writing on it.
They only did that with Elish Norm before, and that's one of my favorite looking cards.
Yeah, so that's pretty sweet. I have no idea how hard it's going to be to get a hold of these. We just happened to get one in the booster packs we opened for game nights. So I want to brag about that a little. Okay. Just to Craig, really. Because he's going to edit this.
You're boasting, dude.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm boasting. I can only do it once.
Yeah.
But it's because Craig's editing this, so I just want to be like, check it out. Okay. Vorinclex Monstrous Raider. 4 green. So 6 mana for a 6/6 Phyrexian Praetor. Has trample and haste. It says, if you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. Very familiar.
Yeah, that's huge.
And I bet you can guess the next part then. If you would put, it's not the, it's not the tokens thing though. It doesn't do the other part of doubling season, right?
Yeah, I bet you can't get the next part.
It says, if an opponent would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead, rounded down. So this does what Vorinclex used to do. It's sort of in the same theme, right? The old Vorinclex is like your lands tap for double, their lands tap for half, kind of, because they don't untap.
Stay untap.
This is like you get double counters on everything, and everybody else gets half counters on everything. It's kind of like, what is it, Gisela for counters.
Yep. This is interesting. This is doubling season, basically, but for 1 mana more. More importantly, like, it's a hate bear against other counter decks. It just turns off their doubling season. It turns off a lot of things. It turns off an infect deck almost entirely.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And
that's why I was saying haha to Craig.
Yeah. It's okay. He's gonna get his revenge 2 cards down with the other mono green card. Yeah, I mean, like, I think having a redundant version of doubling season in any deck that wants it seems pretty good.
It doesn't do the token doubling. It only does the interaction with planeswalkers is what we're kind of talking about, really, right? That's the other big thing that doubling season does, is it makes the planeswalkers come in with double loyalty, and this Vorinclex does do that.
If you're playing it with blue, it just goes infinite with Jace Cunning Castaway, because Jace comes in with 3 and then doubles up to 6, and then his -5 is create 2 tokens that are a copy of Jace Cunning Castaway, except they're not legendary. Those tokens come in at 3 loyalty or 6,
and then
so you just make infinite Jaces.
I mean, any planeswalker that does stuff with doubling season will do stuff with Vorinclex.
Yep. Yeah.
They do the same thing, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems kind of fun if you play it with Phylath, because that card's just adding tons of +1/+1 counters on target plants. And then I was thinking, this kind of is bad sometimes, because if your opponent has a Glenelendra Archmage, they get it back and the persist counter doesn't come on it because it rounds it down. So it just comes back and will instant persist forever. So like the Kitchen Finks combo, if they have a sack outlet, they can just infinitely gain life the moment you play this Vorinclex.
Wow. So if they have sack outlet with like Murderous Redcap, all of a sudden you can't.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah,
infinite life with Kitchen Finks
down. If it's like rounded up, then it would always get at 1. It would still be the same. But this, if it only putting 1 counter on it, rounds it down to 0.
Oh, it's really bad against Glenelendra, Murderous Redcap, Kitchen Finks.
Yeah.
Oh, and those cards see a lot of play. I didn't even think of that. That makes this card significantly worse.
Yeah, I think if you play this card, you want to do it and then try and win very quickly, or hope that your meta doesn't have that sort of effect.
That's interesting.
Also, if they have a Saga, it is not going to happen because it tries to place a lore counter. That lore counter will never hit the Saga, so you just turn their Sagas off.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So that is another, So it's like, it's weird. It's good, it's bad, it's great, it's awful, it's a lot of things. It's Vorinclex.
It's good, it's bad, it's great, it's awful, it's Vorinclex.
It's Vorinclex, yeah. We just made the commercial for it.
All right. The next mono green, there are 3 mono green commanders. If you remember, mono green had less of the MDFC commanders.
Yeah, they only had 1, I think.
So they got an extra traditional commander here. So the next one is Toski, Bearer of Secrets. This is Rachel Weeks' commander that she plays on the next episode of Game Nights. She pronounces it Toski, so I think so. So
Toski sounds cuter too, and it's pretty cute.
So that's how I'm going to say it. Toski, Bearer of Secrets. 3 and a green for a 1/1. Legendary creature, Squirrel.
Woo!
Legendary Squirrel, yep. This spell can't be countered. Well, 4 mana 1/1. I don't know why I'd want to counter it. It has Indestructible.
Oh, that's a reason.
Getting better. Toski attacks each combat if able. Has to attack. Has Indestructible, so it's not going to die, but you can't just hold it back on defense.
Now we're back into that. I don't want.
Why is there another downside? It's a 4 mana 1/1.
Yeah, I'm like, don't want to counter it. Maybe I'll counter it. I don't even want to counter it. It can't be countered anyway.
All right. Well, the last ability is pretty good. It says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card.
Yay! So this is cool because Edric, Spymaster of Tress, which is similar to this, has any creature dealing combat damage to one of your opponents, his controller may draw a card. This is one-sided, so that's a lot better in the decks that want to go wide and draw a ton off of a commander like this.
Right. Your opponents cannot draw cards off of Toski.
Yeah. Now, Toski fits great in a bunch of 99s as well. If you're playing any of the mutate decks, Toski is not a human. It is definitely a creature. So Aluna and Otremir are both cards that want to have an indestructible card to mutate onto, because that way you're not going to as easily lose it.
Yep.
Which makes a lot of sense. And then you're sort of like back onto the Volrath the Shapestealer plan, because you can like copy whatever you suit this thing onto, right? Like you can like you like mutate some crazy thing, Vorath is out or whatever, you copy that, and I don't know. It seems interesting.
Yeah, it feels like you want to go wide. You want to make a lot of squirrels or a lot of tokens of any kind, really, because whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So it doesn't matter how hard each creature is hitting for individually. It really matters how many creatures are connecting with your opponents. That's how many cards you'll draw.
Right.
So it feels like it wants to push you in that direction of go wide.
Yeah, if you play Druid's Call, it's an enchantment. Whenever an enchanted creature is dealt damage, its controller creates that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. So now they can't even block him. Otherwise, you make more things that draw more cards or block her, or I don't even know what Toski is. And then there's Oran Frostfang, gives your creatures death touch, and it's very similar. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So...
Yep. I think you probably want to put some things in the deck that give Toski vigilance.
Okay.
Because it is a great blocker, because it's indestructible. Rachel likes to say it's indestructible squirrel. And you want it to be back to block too, but it has to attack each combat fable. So, if it doesn't have vigilance, you can't hold it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty cool. I think this is,
could be a really fun squirrel-ish deck, and having Indestructible in Commander is a great way to, and not, like, this almost feels like it's a card for someone that's just getting into the game, can't be countered, so there's no feel-bads there. Indestructible is going to dodge a lot of removal, and just is going to smack people for a lot and draw you cards.
Yeah, so you can really build around it without worrying that it's going to go away and your whole deck's going to be turned off. And at the same time, it doesn't feel like an effect that's so crazy powerful that it's like, broken. So, yeah, I kind of like where Toski sits.
He's kind of flying
which is in a tree.
Though, right? Yeah. I was kind of like, where's the pun? It's coming.
All right. The third mono green commander is Fynn the Fangbearer. It's 1 and a green for a 1/3 human warrior. This one's uncommon. 1/3 has Death Touch. So 2 mana 1/3 with Death Touch, and says whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters.
Oh.
So it turns all of your Death Touchers into Infect, kind of. It's not the same as Infect, right? So Infect works however much damage they deal, that's how many poison counters your opponent gets. This is, your opponent gets 2 poison counters if they're dealt combat damage. It doesn't matter if one of your Death Touchers is 7/7.
Yeah, and it's only 2, so that's not great. I mean, like, at first I was like, this is Craig's card, but it's not as good as it looks for that sort of Infect prototype on the surface. Non-combat things that you're doing don't really care. Like, it's combat damage only, and it requires the creature to have Death Touch. That's the other big thing.
At least it doesn't take away their normal combat damage, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
So it's kind of added. But yeah, how many Death Touch creatures does your deck have to have or normally create to make this good? It's a lot, right?
Because it's almost all of them, right?
Yeah, just giving 4 poison counters to somebody is not that great. It only is good if you can regularly hit them with five times with the Death Touch creature, and that's a lot.
Yeah, so I think you're actually putting this in the 99. So people have been trying to build Death Touch decks with Glissa the Traitor or Chevel being the monsters. Actually, Hapatra, a deck you built, might be the perfect place for this to sit.
Yeah, I actually, when I saw this card, I'm still thinking about whether I would put it in Hapatra or not. It's right on the edge.
Yeah, so when Hapatra, it's a black-green 2/2. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature, and then whenever you put 1 or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, you create a 1/1 green snake creature token with Death Touch. So maybe it's like an alternate win condition then. You have 20 snakes, but you can't kill them with it. But now with this card out, boom, you swing with everything. Everyone gets 2 poison counters per snake that hits. Seems like that's a way to kill someone.
It seems like it, but I've played that deck a lot. I've had it for a long time. It's one of the decks from an early episode of Game Nights. Mm-hmm. And honestly, like, in most games, I don't swing with a lot of snakes more than once.
Oh.
Right? You either swing with a lot of snakes and you Crater of Beastmaster Ascension, Triumph of the Hordes, whatever it is, and win. But you very rarely are like, hit you with 4 snakes, hit you with 3 snakes, next turn hit you with 3 more. And if you ever have like 8 or 9 snakes and you're swinging, you're winning that turn because you have Beastmaster Ascension or something else. So I guess
this is just like kind of redundancy, but it's not even as good as Beastmaster in the
That's the question. Would it replace Beastmaster or Craterhoof or one of those? And I don't think it's as good as one of those, because there are times when like it's not going to punch you through the damage and win where those cards would. And I don't think there are any points where this would punch through where those cards wouldn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to make this card work. You want it like the Death Touch deck isn't as fleshed out as the Menace Menace deck.
Yeah.
You've got Hooded Blightfang, which is in black, and it's whenever a creature you control Death Touch attacks, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain a life. So it's like got a lot of help in small places around Fast Fang that we talked about earlier. I think you're really just wanting to put this in a regular deck that's got big creatures that have Death Touch already, and then maybe you give them Trample with Nylea, God of the Hunt, or you put a Fire Shrieker on them and it's going to give them 4 counters, poison counters, because it can hit them twice.
Yeah.
So this looks a lot more impressive, I think, and it's a lot scarier than it actually is.
I think they've been sort of going in the direction of this keyword tribal with Menace, Death Touch, Trample, some of
Flying even, yeah.
Flying's more there than the rest. I don't think Death Touch is there, but this card maybe gets better as the years progress because they tend to give us a few little pieces for this. It looks like every, every set's getting like 1 or 2 or something. So maybe in like 2 years, we hit critical mass and that deck is a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we are through all the monocolored traditional regular commanders, but we still have all the multicolored ones to go, and there are a lot of them, as you can see in my hand here.
12.
So, yeah, but before we go through all those, we're going to take a quick break and hear a message from our sponsors.
Hey there, I'm Alina Kessig Trapper.
And I'm Halana Kessig Ranger. Recently, we were mistaken for sisters.
Ugh, ew, no, gross. Definitely not.
Yeah, no. We're a couple, and that's important because in the dark, dangerous woods of Kessig, having that special someone by your side just makes it easier to get through the day.
That's why we make sure to appreciate each other with fun little romantic gestures. I recently got us matching fox pattern MeUndies.
So when I'm out hunting foxes and Elena's out trapping foxes, we're both wearing foxes to remind us of each other.
It's our fun little secret that's also really comfortable and cute. See, MeUndies are made with sustainable, breathable, softer than soft fabric, and they come in a ton of sizes. That way, anyone can find the perfect fit.
We even signed up for the MeUndies membership, so they send us a new pair of socks or undies every single month.
It gives us something to be excited about, besides killing things.
Which, to be fair, we do get pretty excited about.
Just a little.
Right now, MeUndies has a great deal for Command Zone listeners. To get 15% off your first order and free shipping, go to MeUndies.com/command. That's MeUndies.com/command.
Cupid ain't got nothing on us.
Yeah, I mean, what's he gonna kill with that tiny bow?
Greetings, I am Nazan, revered Bladesmith. Yes, that's my title, Bladesmith, though you wouldn't know it. Seriously, I made one hammer and now it's all anyone talks about. That's why I'm here, to reforge my reputation as a blade expert and tell you about Harry's Razors, a company that deserves the endorsement of a revered bladesmith, which is exactly what I am. From their razor factory in Germany, Harry's hones only precision blades. They even source the steel themselves to keep their prices low. That's why for a limited time, Harry's is offering their starter set plus a free body wash for just $3 at harrys.com/command. I tried Harry's razors and was astounded by the clean feeling of the shave. That's a new experience for someone who is completely covered in hair.
For a limited time, Harry's has an exclusive offer for listeners of the Command Zone. New customers get a Harry's starter set and a free body wash for just $3 at harrys.com/command. That's over $16 of value for just $3. You'll get a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, a travel cover, and a travel-size body wash. It's an incredibly great deal, but act fast while supplies last. Go to harrys.com/command to redeem your offer.
Now that's the sort of blades you can rely on. Seriously, try and shave with a hammer. I promise it won't go well.
All right, we are back reviewing all of the non-god MDFC, non-MDFC legendary creatures from Kaldheim that can be your commander and also might end up in your 99, but mostly we're talking about from the perspective of being as your commander.
We don't know how to designate them.
Yeah, is that too long?
They're the ones that you can't flip over.
Yeah.
The whole thumbnail is just text.
Oh boy, we've been doing this too long. All right, what's next up, Josh?
All right,
these are all multicolored.
Yeah, we're going through the multicolored ones. We're going to go through them in alphabetical order. So the first one is Agar, the Freezing Flame. I have the cool showcase frame foil for this one.
Foil.
Yeah, look at that. The showcase frames on this set are really sweet.
You jealous yet, Craig?
All right, it is 1 blue, red, so 3 mana total for a 3/3 legendary giant wizard. This is an uncommon as well. It says, whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess damage, if a giant wizard or spell you controlled dealt damage to it this turn, draw a card.
Oh.
There's a lot to unpack there. Excess damage is damage over the amount of toughness they have. So first of all, anytime a creature your opponents control is dealt more damage than toughness they have, then you're going to ask, was that creature dealt damage by a giant wizard or spell you controlled this turn.
Right. Any of the giant, wizard, spell. The spell is the big one because that seems like what's going to be doing the most damage here.
And the damage they're taking that's got excess damage can be from a giant wizard or spell. It can be like this. Yes, you go, they're taking 7 damage. They have 4 toughness. That's 3 excess damage. And you go, did they take damage from a giant wizard or spell? And you go, yeah, the thing that's hitting them is a giant. Yep. So then it qualifies and you will draw a card.
Yeah,
one
not
card.
3 for the, you just roll 1 card per creature.
Right. But it could also be like you attack with a 2/2 giant. There aren't any 2/2 giants. You attack with a 4/4 giant. They block with a 1/6. Right? That's no excess damage. But then that thing has taken 4 damage. It's got 4 damage marked on it, and you go lightning bolt.
Ooh.
There's 1 excess damage there, and it's taken damage from a giant. Well, that is a spell too. Draw a card. So a little confusing. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are a lot of wizards out there. Pingers as well might be a way to, I guess, like, could you ping something that's already received lethal damage if you do it in reaction, and that's excess damage?
No, because it's already dead. I think it would have to be indestructible, but that's still, I don't know exactly how that works. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
We'll have to ask a judge on that. Anyway, you called this splash damage when we talked about it, or
it's basically trample, but for direct damage spells or effects or creatures or whatever, what have you.
Kinda, yeah. It doesn't actually trample over, but you just get an additional effect here, which is draw a card. So all the same cards that we talked about for, what was that?
Tarolf. Yeah,
still work. So Blasphemous Act, Chain Reaction, Chandra's Ignition, Star of Extinction, Earthquake. There's a ton of them in red that deal a lot of damage to each creature. And if Agar's out when you do that, then all the creatures that you're dealing excess damage to, Blasphemous Act will probably do all the creatures. You'll draw a card for each of them.
What if Agar dies?
Only the ones your opponents control.
Yeah.
Agar will still see him if he's dying at the time when all the damage was dealt. You will want to protect Agar, though.
Yeah, I like what you wrote here for this.
Yeah, the great thing is that red is going to be the way you're probably dealing excess damage. And so you can give Agar protection from red with like Sword of Fire and Ice, or you could give him Indestructible or something.
Right.
So that he doesn't die from these Chain Reaction, Blasphemous Act effects. And then if you just, have a bunch of ways to protect Agar and a bunch of ways to do the Blasphemous Act thing, then you're going to draw a lot of cards.
Yeah, and obviously you do want to play this with Tarolf, which is a trample 2 red. Whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess non-combat damage, so this ties into this, then Tarolf deals damage equal to the excess to any target other than that permanent. So it's kind of like a combo here. You want to have Tarolf in the Agar deck, but the Agar deck could also be like Giant Tribal or just Spells Tribal. I think is probably where you want to go.
Yeah, and Tarolf notably is not a giant or wizard.
Right.
So he'll still work, though, if the spell already hit that creature that turn and he's sort of dealing the rest of the damage to it. Because Agar's worded in that weird way where, when the excess damage is dealt, you ask the question, has that creature taken damage from a giant wizard or spell?
And then you react, yeah.
Yeah. Niv Mizzet, Parun, or Firemind can both be good. Parun is a wizard.
Oh, right. And when you draw a card that deals 1 damage to any target, whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery, you also draw a card.
Yeah, so here's that same question you asked Jimmy, and I don't actually know the answer to it, because if you gave one of their creatures indestructible, could you go infinite with Niv Mizzet Parun by, dealing the 1 damage? If it should have died already this turn, like it's got 4 toughness, but 5 damage marked on it, does the 1 damage you're doing to it count as excess damage?
I would think so, because lethal damage is... It's not whether or not it will die. It's whether I think it's based on its toughness. Look at us not knowing the answer.
This one's tough. I mean, I think our rules knowledge has gotten way better over the years, but we still obviously don't know everything. That's probably something we need to ask a judge, or if you know in the comments or something of this video, please put it in there. But it's an interesting question to ask. So I'm not sure if that works, but maybe
it's
it does.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you just want to be able to do as much damage as possible then to make sure you're always splashing over. So Torbrand is a thing of red fell. Fire Emancipation, Dictate of the Twin Gods. These are all damage doublers and triplers.
Yeah, that would make Niv Mizzet Parun work for sure.
Yeah, for sure, because then it does 3 damage every ping. Wow. Torbrand with Niv Mizzet is insane.
Yeah. Because then you draw the card and it goes, 3 damage to that.
Yeah, 3 damage to that. Kill the whole thing, draw a bunch of cards. I win. Not yet.
It's just good with burn in general, though, right? Like Lightning Bolt and Fireball just seem real good with this.
Yeah, the kind of cantrip is the big thing, and so it's a removal spell that gets you a drawback into your hand.
And that's really the big thing about those cards, because we're always saying, well, Lightning Bolt is really efficient, but is it worth a card?
Yeah.
Well, if it says draw a card on it for still the 1 mana, it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, like you could even cycle it and get rid of like a pesky 2/2 that maybe isn't the top priority, and that's sort of why damage spells like Lightning Bolt aren't that great either, is because you can't get rid of, sometimes they're like 8/8 or whatever. But it's great if it draws you a card with Agar out, and then you can just sort of knock things apart.
I tell you what, I've been playing Lightning Bolt a lot in red decks recently, just because they've come out with so many commanders that you can just take out with them, like the Selvalas of the world and things like that, where you're just like
3 is a good number.
1 mana, kill a commander, Timnas and things like that is just like, it's worth it. Thrasioses and things like that.
Yeah,
it's totally worth it.
I like this line you put here, which is similar to Rolf. Do you want to be giving creatures to your opponents so that you can use them for splash damage?
Right. That's a question, right? In Toralf, we said, oh, hey, Varchild or Forbidden Orchard, Hunted Dragon. Varchild's War Riders is an interesting one because it has cumulative upkeep of give your opponents tokens. So is that another strategy here that this deck wants? Because you could run into a situation where you have Blasphemous Act, but there's only 3 creatures out, and that's not that great.
Yeah.
And so if you were spending the early parts of the game giving everybody creatures, that Blasphemous Act looks a lot better because now it draws you 10.
Yeah, and you can do like Forbidden Orchard to just give a bunch of people stuff. The Hunted series as well. That's actually pretty interesting. I think that's kind of maybe where you want to go with this.
Could be a fun way to go.
Yeah.
Anyway, interesting card. I think it incentivizes some interesting builds, and just the fact that it maybe makes a burn deck a little more possible, I like.
Yeah, and you can play an Alliances card in this deck with that
Varchild's War Riders. Yeah, cumulative upkeep.
Woohoo!
All right, the next one is, Furia.
Sure.
Judge of Valor.
It's going to judge you if you're wrong, though.
It totally judged me and found me lacking in my pronunciation. 2 white, black. So 5 mana for a 2/4.
5
mana for a 2/4 Angel Cleric with flying and lifelink.
Okay.
5 mana, 2/4. Okay. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. So it's a Orzhov card that cares about you casting 2 spells per turn. It's each turn too. So if I cast 2 on my turn, then 2 on Jimmy's turn, I'll get to do that on both turns.
Yeah, this seems not great. It's a 5 mana card that then you can start going off of it, and it's not in blue or red, which is the colors typically associated with casting more than like one spell a turn. A lot of cheap spells, cantrips, all that stuff. So I think like the only interesting part about that effect is that it mills stuff into your graveyard, and you can kind of choose what goes in there. So I don't know, I'm not in love with this card.
No, I think you probably want to play Flashback. There's a surprising amount in white and black, just to give you access to the cards that are also going into your graveyard that you're not choosing.
Right.
So you can play, and also just being able to cast a spell twice makes it more likely you're going to be able to cast 2 spells in a turn. But Flashback spells are often expensive, especially on the Flashback side.
Yeah.
Hard to cast 2 in the same turn. So maybe you want like Retrace is another thing that allows you to cast spells out of your graveyard if you discard a land. But also like Rebound might be a way to go because that's in white for sure. And when you cast a Rebound spell, it casts it again during your upkeep. So that's 1 spell you've cast already this turn. It makes it a lot easier to cast 2 spells in a turn.
Yeah. But to just draw 1 card off it?
I mean, maybe. Rebound's already a little bit of card advantage, so getting that, I don't know. Yawgmoth's Will lets you play stuff out of your graveyard.
Yeah. Catalyst Stone is a card that loves Flashback. It's a 2 mana artifact. Flashback costs you pay costs up to 2 less, and then your opponent's Flashback costs up to 2 more, which probably isn't going to be relevant.
Maybe just White Weenie, like small creatures. Generally, the downside of playing out a bunch of small creatures is somebody answers them and you've run out of gas.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like I play 2 1-drops, draw a card, and then the next turn I play 2 1-drops, draw a card. And that's pretty fast start in Commander. It could be scary. You do some damage.
But you have to get a 5 mana Commander out to even do that.
Oh, that's a really good point. You just can't... I didn't even think about that.
I did like rewrite. You wrote, compare this to Nimrus.
Oh, yeah. Read Nimrus, because it's going to make us be like, what?
Yeah, why do we even care about this card? Nimrus Una's Trickster is 3 blue-black for a legendary creature, Fairy Knight, 1/6 with flash and flying. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand and 1 into the graveyard. So the first spell on each opponent's turn in blue and black just seems a little bit easier to do.
It's way better. You only have to cast 1 spell. You get almost the same effect. And yeah, I don't know. When I saw Nimrus, when I saw this, I thought, don't we have this card? And we do. And of course it's in blue-black, and of course it's better, because if you replace white with blue, what do you get? A better card.
Yeah, it's just straight up better card.
Yeah.
Sorry, white.
All right.
Furia's just like, I just wanted to be a judge.
If Furia was 1 white-black, and you just made her like a 1/3 with flying and no lifelink. Then all of a sudden, I think it gets a lot better because now I can start getting that value earlier. But the fact that it's 5 mana, and like you said, I can't start doing the thing until so much later.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot worse. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem great.
All right. The next one is Herald, King of Skemfar. It's 1 black-green for a 3/2 elf warrior with Menace.
Yay.
With Menace. It says, when Herald enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal an elf, warrior, or Tyvar card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Tyvar is one of the planeswalkers from Kaldheim. We won't talk about him now, but obviously, if you happen to have Tyvar in your top 5, it's going to feel pretty good.
Yeah, this screams standard to me. I don't know. This does not seem terribly exciting. Maybe you put it into your elf deck to draw more, but it also needs to be black-green. Are there that many warrior decks that are like that either?
Does it go into like Najila or some warrior deck? I don't think it's probably good enough.
I don't think so either.
I mean, I just wrote down, how much better is this than Elvish Visionary? Because Elvish Visionary is 2 mana, draws you a card.
That's right, yeah.
I think Elvish Visionary is kind of just better, actually, because you could draw a land off it if you need a land, and it's 2 mana, not 3.
2 mana, not 3.
I mean, obviously, this is a 3/2 with Menace, but in Commander, that's just not that great.
Let me guess, it's uncommon?
Yeah, it's uncommon.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about it that long. I mean, maybe you could do some stuff with like Kaya's Ghost Form or those black cards that say when it dies, it comes back to the battlefield to get some extra value. But all those cost you a card to do that. And then, you get the card back if you have an Elf or a Warrior or a Tyvar in the top 5, but you could whiff. Yeah, I don't know.
Seems like you're putting it in the 99 somewhere. Maybe it gets you a little extra value.
Yeah.
If you have a bunch of Tyvar type cards running around, then great. Or if you just have the one, I guess.
All right, the next one is Rakdos. It's Cardor Doomscourge. 2 black-red, so 4 mana for a 4/3 Demon Berserker. When Cardor enters the battlefield, until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able and attack a player other than you if able. So it goads all your opponent's creatures. I don't know why it doesn't say goad. I guess they don't want goad in standard.
Yeah, I don't think they wanted to put the mechanic in there.
Yeah.
This is basically like Disrupt Decorum, right? It's 2 red to goad all creatures you don't control, which is
Disrupt
the same
Decorum
exact effect.
In your command zone. I love that already.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a fun card. I think like if you play this in a Judith the Scourge Diva build because it's already pinging people for damage.
Oh, wait, hold on.
You didn't finish the card?
Yeah, I didn't finish the card.
So sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So the top part is it goads all your opponent's creatures, but also it says whenever an attacking creature dies, an attacking creature, this could be your opponent's.
Anyone on the,
Each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So they've got to attack with all their stuff and attack not you, and probably in that scrum some stuff's going to die, and they're all going to take damage when that stuff dies. And then also just
Combat
regular
damage,
attacking and stuff that you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Judith the Scourge Diva, again, this is something that whenever a non-token creature you control dies, it does 1 damage to any target, but it's all about aristocracy type stuff, and if everyone's just swinging out and dying and getting pinged, seems pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. I think this is cool. This control the combat step is something we've been talking about as a deck archetype that's kind of
been growing.
Didn't exist 5 years ago, and they keep adding more and more pieces, which I like. And this is probably another piece in those decks. I really like Disrupt Decorum. I think it's an underrated card. So being able to have that in your command zone seems cool. It doesn't do anything against decks that don't have creatures, and a lot of the most powerful decks don't have or play a lot of creatures. So that's
I guess the other players are just going to swing at them then, right?
I guess so. This is always the downside of those cards, or these types of cards and builds, is that it's not good against some of the most powerful decks, but that's okay because in a lot of metas, 6s and 7s or whatever everybody's playing in, those have a lot of creatures.
Yeah, and you can play Trumpet Blast in this deck too because it makes all attacking creatures get +2/+0 until
you
end
can
of
pump
turn.
your opponent's stuff.
Yeah, you just have them all swing out and you're like, Trumpet Blast, and everyone's like, oh, Repeated Reverberation, oh, everyone dies. Thantis the Warweaver is another deck you could put this in because that's all, again, about making your opponents attack. It's hard to double this up in black and red. You can't really like make copies that easily. So you got Helm of the Host, Splinter Twin, lets you do it every turn.
Oh, that's actually cool. Splinter Twin, and then just on your turn, make a copy of Cardor.
Yeah, and you just
and
get
goad
rid of
everybody
the copy
again.
because it'll enter the battlefield, and then the Legend Rule will make you kill one. But that's okay. You got the goad effect. That's all you wanted, right?
That's just like a free Disrupt Decorum. I think that's pretty useful.
Yeah, and
you can also do that at instant speed with Splinter Twin, which is useful because one of the things about goad, or the way this is worded, is it won't see creatures that aren't on the battlefield when you cast it.
Oh, right.
So if they played a creature with haste or something, you could go, okay, Splinter Twin, and it'll see that creature now.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah, and then I guess other ways to double it up, Flame Rush Rider and Flame Shadow Conjuring. You have black, so you could reanimate this Ivory Graveyard.
Helm of the Host.
Yeah, Helm of the Host. I thought Goblin Tunneler, which is like a card that makes people not be able to block. Target creature power 2 or less can't be blocked this turn.
Oh.
Or Subira, which has some like another target creature power 2 or less can't be blocked. So you could like actually mess with combat a little bit more. And same with Grenzo Havoc Razor, which goads stuff. And then Zerzoth Chaos Rider, which actually would go well with the deck that wants to give creatures like Agar, because this is a new card from Jumpstart. It's 2 and a red for a 2/3. Whenever an opponent draws their first card each turn, if it's not their turn, you create a 1/1 red devil creature that when it dies, it deals the damage. And then when one or more devils you control attacks a player, you and those players each draw a card, then discard a card at random. So just making lots of tokens.
It's funny, all the Jumpstart cards, I'm like, wait, what does that do again? Because I just haven't seen
I haven't seen them yet either.
All right. I like Cardor. Seems pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
All right, the next one is Boros. Pretty combo-tastic, actually. It's Cole, the Forge Master. Red and a white, so 2 mana for a 2/2 Dwarf Warrior.
Okay.
Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, return it to its owner's hand. It also says creature tokens you control that are enchanted or equipped get +1/+1. Interesting dichotomy between the two abilities because they don't interact very well, right? If a non-token creature you control dies, it returns to your owner's hand if it was enchanted or equipped. But then it says, if you have tokens and they're enchanted or equipped, they get bigger. So I don't think you want to do both those things in the same deck because...
Right, because your tokens, getting them bigger is good. But then
they don't return to your hand. So I don't know if you want to make a lot of tokens in the deck or you want to play into the token anthem thing and not have a lot of non-token creatures. I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about the combos because this is one of the more combo-tastic of all the commanders.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because it's in
red and white.
Red, white. But we know, I think, through aristocrat-style builds that anything that's going to return a creature when it dies to your hand, that is
has
abusable.
A lot of power, totally.
So the best card in the deck is probably Skull Clamp.
Unless you're putting it on a creature that's a token, because then it won't die. Good. To Skull Clamp.
Which is interesting, because it's usually, Skull Clamp is very good with tokens.
Yeah.
But in this one, you want, I think this deck wants a ton of creatures that can be cast for 0 mana.
Oh, because then you can just cast it again, right?
Right, because you're going to get it back to your hand, and you want to be able to just put it back out. So Ornithopters and Kobolds, and there's a, Rog and all that stuff. There's a ton of 0, Memnite. There's a bunch of creatures that cost 0. And then if you put Skull Clamp on that, it dies. It was equipped when it died. Goes to your hand, and you play it again for free. So now it's 1 mana, draw 2 cards as many times as you feel like.
Yeah, because you always have that creature to put it on.
Right. And then if you can add in a free equipper like Pure Steel Paladin or something that says, you can equip things for free.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Now you've got infinite free, a creature entering and leaving the battlefield. And we know that you can quote unquote monetize that, right? You can weaponize that. You can Goblin Bombardment.
You can run some ads on it. Yeah. You can maybe put a brand deal behind it.
Once you have that engine going, you can Goblin Bombardment. You can Altar of the Brood, Dementia, Axemounts Altar, Phyrexian Altar.
Mana. Yep.
You can whatever. Man. There's a million ways that you could turn that into a win. Impact Tremors, Perforos. Those will all win you the game once you have
Holy
a creature.
Moly. I didn't realize this is such a combo-tastic card.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff going on.
Sai of the Shinobi is another equipment that auto-equips when you're in. Yeah, Cigar is 8.
Lightning Greaves is a 0 equip cost, so you just have that sack outlet and Rock or whatever. You just equip it, sack it, and it's 0 equip.
Is this the best red-white commander ever made because it can go infinite so easily?
I don't know. I mean, I think one of the other things about this is that you're in the colors that white, ironically, is the best tutor color for artifacts, right?
Oh, yeah.
And equipment. So Steel Shaper's Gift, Enlightened Tutor, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So you have a really good chance
Open the armory, yeah,
to find the pieces for the combo that you need. And the win conditions, there are a lot of them. It's not just one. So you can have, like I said, all the altars, but there's also
Tremors,
Yeah, there's also like Blasting Station and stuff like that. So and all that, like Idyllic Tutor will find Perforos or Impact Tremors. So you can find, Goblin Bombardment. Enlightened Tutor will find any of that stuff and the artifacts. So yeah, I actually think that
this has all the makings of a CDH deck.
I don't know if it'll be CDH because I don't know about the resiliency and things like that, and I'm not a CDH player. Maybe it will, but it's a 2-drop that combos pretty easily. So the combos are, you need like 3 or 4 cards. That doesn't tend to be CDH level, but I think that style of deck will be very powerful. The problem is, if it's not powerful enough for CDH, but it's a combo commander, then where are you going to play it? Because at 7 and 8, it might be a 7 or an 8, but the variance will be high. It'll feel really bad because some games you'll combo off early and everybody go, that deck's way too powerful. And then some games it won't find the combo and it won't do anything. And then everybody go, that deck sucks.
Yeah.
It averages out to a 7.5 or an 8, but it doesn't feel like that in either case. It feels like a 4 sometimes and a 10 sometimes, Yeah,
and after maybe playing it 5 or 6 times, you kind of just know how it works. Yeah. And you kind of lose interest, I feel like, on that level too.
Maybe. It could be cool. In playgroups that are fine with that kind of thing, and I think ours is one of those.
Yeah.
Where we'd be like, oh, cool, you comboed off, great. I don't think anybody would really groan if you combo off in that way. Like, you got a 0 casting creature, a Skull Clamp, a Pure Steel Paladin, and a Goblin Bombardment out. Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Sweet, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I'm not mad about it. Like, I should have been able to stop that.
Yeah, I saw it 5 pieces ago. I should have been doing something.
Yeah, exactly.
We were monetizing too hard.
But still, I do think there is power there because there are a lot of redundancy for a lot of the pieces. So it's pretty cool.
I'm down with it.
All right, the next one is...
It's just something new for Red White. We're all like, ooh.
At least it's not like... It is equipment-based and aura-based, which the first thing you said, you would think is like, again. Yeah. But it's doing more interesting stuff that's at least a little different.
Yeah, you can combo off with, yeah.
All right, this next card is a house. It's Coma, Cosmos Serpent. This is the commander that Jacob Bertrand, who plays Hawk on Cobra Kai. We spoiled last episode or a couple episodes ago that he's going to be on game nights. Yes. This is the commander that he's playing.
This is definitely a Hawk commander, even though it's not the colors of his mohawk.
Yeah.
It's definitely oppressive and kind of a bully.
All right, Coma, Cosmos Serpent is 3 green, blue. So 7 mana for a 6/6 Serpent. Legendary, of course. It says this spell can't be countered.
Okay.
That's good, because if you're going to spend 7 mana on your commander, you definitely don't want him to be like a counterspell. It says, at the beginning of each upkeep,
oh no,
create a 3/3 blue serpent creature token named Coma's Coil.
Oh no.
So if you're playing in 4 players, on one rotation of the table, you will get 4 3/3s. 1 on each player's upkeep.
Yep. And 3 of them will have haste, and the 4th one that gets made on your turn doesn't. But that's, virtual haste, because they'll come back to you.
Yeah, it's Dragon Broodmother kind of at this point, but it can't be countered, costs a little bit more mana, but makes 3/3s. But we're not done, and this is the thing that sort of pushes it over into like, oh, this card's very good.
Yeah.
It says, sacrifice another serpent, and then choose one. Either tap target permanent, its activated abilities can't be activated this turn.
Ooh.
Target permanent, so you can tap their land on their upkeep, and they can't tap it for mana the rest of the turn. They can try and float the mana right there, but it's their upkeep.
Yeah, this is Planeswalkers too, right?
Yes, you can tap a Planeswalker, and they can't activate their loyalty. So on their upkeep, you can just turn off a Planeswalker. Also, we've played against this deck a few times. We've seen that, it just tends to, there's a lot of abilities floating around just randomly, and you're like, crap, don't tap that, dang it.
Yeah,
and
don't stop it, oh no.
Yeah, Lithoform Engine or something on your upkeep. They just turn it off, right?
Yeah.
And then it also... So that's one of the things. You can sack a Serpent and do that, or you can sack a Serpent and Coma gains indestructible until end of turn. And that really puts it into another level now.
Oh my gosh, it protects itself.
Yes,
it's the ultimate.
Because now you spent 7 mana on a commander, but then you pass the turn, you make a token during their upkeep, and now it's pretty well protected. Obviously, it can be exiled, can be bounced, but there are way less ways to kill it. A board wipe doesn't solve your problem. If you often want a board wipe because they have a ton of serpents and stuff.
Yep.
But it doesn't get rid of Coma, which
activated abilities don't do it either.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
So Coma is pretty strong. This is a card I like to say the entire engine is on the card.
Right. Yeah.
This card, if it's just left to its own devices, will take over and win the game. Very like a snake, right? It's just going to slowly, incrementally squeeze the game and win. It'll just, over time, it'll be able to handle anything. It won't die, and it'll create enough value on its own that it's just very hard to overcome.
So much value, though. Every single upkeep. Think of the power. That's 12 power and toughness as well. Jeez.
Yeah, it's just going to take over the game if you left to its own devices. Now, you can do some stuff to help it out. So you can try and make more tokens. So obviously, doubling season, parallel lives, very good. Because not only are you getting double the power, you're also getting double the activations on Coma, which just... Once Coma's got like 4 serpents, it's very oppressive. Because you can't kill it, it's going to get indestructible, and it can get indestructible.
You have to exile it, otherwise, You can't even attack into it because it will just tap your stuff down.
Yeah. Normally, a deck like this, you'd be like, okay, I got to fly over the top of it.
Kill the player, not the creature,
Because all that stuff's on the ground, right? All the snakes and whatever. But Coma's got protection from flying because it just says, oh, you got a big flyer? Tap it down before combat.
That's what I didn't think about, right? I'm like, what are all the activated abilities that can stop? It's like, no, it can just tap down stuff, and that can be more than enough to stop you from killing a player.
Yeah, you're a Voltron commander, and you're hoping to swing in there with commander damage? No, you're not.
Yeah.
I'm going to tap it down before combat. It's just a very powerful thing to be able to do. Whelming Wave, very good in this deck because they're all serpents.
Yeah, so Whelming Wave is 2 blue. Return all creatures to their owner's hands except for krakens, leviathans, octopuses, and serpents. Coma is literally Cosmos Serpent.
Yeah,
so
and he makes serpents.
Get wrecked.
This card's really good with counterspells. I think because it is so powerful on its own, you stick it, and if you have Fierce Guardianship or or Swan Song or something in hand to protect it for that one rotation. And now if you just sat there and said, okay, I'm just going to make sure my Coma doesn't die and you guys don't do anything nuts, and I'll just win with Serpents after 3 turns or so.
Yeah, ramp out to this, just hold up Counterspell, and just get Serpents after Serpents after Serpents.
The Serpents will win you the game eventually, because you're going to Crater Hoof or whatever.
Yeah, or you'll play a Doubling Season and double them up. You'll just, but yeah. I mean, I think this is just an insanely powerful card. What colors was it again?
Yeah, Simic. It's interesting because everybody was like, oh, a Simic card that doesn't like draw you cards or put lands into play. And they're like,
still nuts.
Yeah, but it does everything else. You can't even counter the thing.
They're like, we didn't fill in this part of the Simic value pile. We got to do that first before we really get to everything else. Like, why can't they just give white, white's is like a Chroma, Vision of Ixidor. It's like, it's not even, it's like, come on, that's not, look at Coma. Look at Coma.
He does everything.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, Jacob did not build his deck in this way, but there is a very mean version of Coma, I think, that stacks. Because think how good Coma is with stacks. If you just stick Coma and then Winter Orb, Static Orb, Stasis, anything like that, and no one can do anything, even if you can't, you're making 12 power worth of stuff every turn. Plus, you can tap their stuff down,
right?
Which is not going to untap. So you could just keep the game on lock and just slowly wait till you have enough Serpents and win that way.
It's definitely how you make a lot of friends.
Yeah. I mean, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention it, but I think a lot of play groups are not going to love that.
No, definitely not.
Coma, pretty good.
Put you in a coma.
Big time.
Yeah.
All right. The next card is Maha?
Baja Blast? Maya. It has to be Maya.
Maya Bredegard Protector. I'm really sorry. I mangled that, I'm sure. All right. 2 green, white. So 5 mana for a 2/3.
Okay.
Human warrior. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. So landfall, create a 1/1, but it's actually a 2/2 because it has the Anthem effect to give +1/+1 to your other creatures.
Okay, so Selesnya tokens is something we've seen plenty of times before. Green and white loves making tokens. They can populate, they can do all that stuff. But now we have landfall on top.
Yeah, so this is just created 2 archetypes that already exist and sort of slamming them together and saying, hey, landfall, we know exists, tokens exist,
Welcome to Kaldheim.
There you go. So this deck probably plays that package we talked about for Boros with the Fetch Lands, Crucible of Worlds, brought back Safine's Reclamation, Second Sunrise. There's actually a new one of those in this set.
Yeah.
It's a Foretell card. It's called Cosmic Invention.
Cosmic Intervention.
Oh, Intervention.
Yeah. The art is really sweet, too. It's 3 and a white for an instant. If a permanent you control will be put into a graveyard from the battlefield this turn, exile it instead. Return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. And then the Foretell cost is 1 in the white. So during your turn, you can pay 2, and then you turn this card upside down, and it's like ready to be cast at any time for 1 in the blue. So you can sort of split up the mana cost. Yeah, 1 in the white, but it's Foretell for 2. Colorless, yeah. Or generic, sorry.
Yeah, so you pay 2, and then later you pay only 2. And that means that you could pay only 2 rather than 3 for Second Sunrise.
4. Oh, yeah.
To make it so anything that's going to go to the graveyard comes back, basically. And that works.
Any permanents, wow.
Yeah, it works with fetch lands, right? You save up a couple of fetch lands, do that, 2 mana, get them back.
It also works with land destruction.
Yeah, it's true. It works with Armageddon and stuff.
Land destruction.
Yeah. So I think this package goes in Maya, and it, you're obviously going to do the fetch land, the extra lands in play thing to make a lot of tokens, and then you just do the token side of the normal strategy, which is Parallel Lives, Annoying Procession,
Cathar's Crusade,
Divine Visitation.
Yep.
All that stuff we always talk about, and you probably win with Crater Hoof, Beastmaster Ascension, Triumph of the Horde, some finisher type, maybe Akroma's Will, that's a new one.
Oh, the new one, yeah.
Yeah, I like how people get excited about, that's a new one. I'm going to put that in instead of Beastmaster Ascension. Sure, but it's filling that same role, right? You're going to have certain roles that are going to be there, and the pump all my stuff, which I have a lot of it, is just a role that needs to be filled in. Whether you want to do it with card A or card C, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I mean, I think these kinds of decks, landfall token decks in general, there are so many of them now that the sort of the lanes to play them are pretty well defined. You can always do other directions. Be creative if you want.
Maybe Warrior Tribal or something, because it does make warriors.
Yeah. That could be fun.
All right, Jimmy, how would you pronounce this next one?
Morit? Morite? I would say Morit. But it's got so many T's and E's at the end, so maybe you want to say Morite.
Like, why is the last T and E there if they make no sound?
Morit. Oh, maybe it's Morit.
Morit. Okay, it's Morit.
Wait, how do you pronounce Umezawa's Jite?
Jite. But that's like
Japanese,
Scandinavian. Japanese. I have no idea.
I don't even know if Jite is. I think Jite is in the English word. I have
no idea.
Whatever. Morite of the Frost.
Morit.
Morite.
Whatever. Of the Frost. Oh my gosh. 2 green, blue. It's Moritte, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Just so everybody out there
It's
can be
Amori.
well, it's obviously this. It's
I don't know. We're just losing our minds now.
okay. We're almost to the end. We can make it.
Okay, we got this.
All right. 2 green, blue. So 5 mana for a 0/0 shapeshifter. Has changeling, so it has all creature types. It says you may have Moritte enter the battlefield as a copy of a permanent you control, except it's a legendary and snow in addition to its other types. And if it's a creature, it enters with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it and has changeling.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you can copy anything that you control. It gets a little bigger, and it still has changeling.
Only if it's a creature.
Only if it's a creature.
Yep.
Otherwise, you can just copy permanents?
Yep, you can make it into, your Gilded Lotus or whatever.
Okay.
But if you make it into a creature, it gets 2 +1/+1 counters and has changeling.
And
it's always legendary
and
and snow. Yeah.
Permanent. Okay.
So there's a bunch of cards that sort of say if it shares a creature type with blah blah blah, then do this. And this is a kind of a way to kind of I'm gonna say break, but like mildly bend this because there's not a lot of these effects that are broken.
Right.
So the first one that's pretty good is Descendant's Path.
Yes, this one is 2 and a green for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. If it's a creature type that shares a creature type with a creature you control, you got a changeling on the battlefield. They all share that creature type.
Exactly. And that's kind of what all these are going to do.
Yeah.
So like alpha status.
Yeah, it gets +2/+2 an enchantment aura for each other creature on the battlefield that shares a creature type with it.
So it counts your opponent's creatures too?
Oh, cool,
Because
cool.
Changeling has all of the creatures.
Yeah,
so,
Heirloom Blade does the same thing when the creature dies as an equipment. Then you reveal cards and you basically do the Descendant's Path thing, but you don't cast it, you just put it into your hand.
Yep, but still, you're going to get a creature back, whatever the next creature is in your deck. Anything with kinship, because kinship is an ability that cares about shares a creature type. If you remember the holiday episode of Game Nights, the leaf-crowned elder that Lady plays.
Which has kinship at the beginning of your upkeep. You may look at the top card of your library. If it shares a creature type with leaf-crowned elder, which it will when you use Morit to copy it and make it a changeling, right?
I'm going to say all 4 names every time.
Every time, yeah. That way, our editors will be able to go in and choose the right one on the day of.
Sure. They're going to choose all of them.
They're going to love that. They're going to be like, that's a good idea, Jimmy.
It does get the 2 +1/+1 counters, which actually might be the more powerful part of this whole thing, which is crazy. Because it's kind of a bad clone in that it's 5 mana, 2 colors. It does do any permanent, but Clever Impersonator does that.
4 mana is typically where clones lie, just so you all know.
So getting 2 +1/+1 counters means if you can copy a persist card and a sack outlet, you'll just go infinite because
because it comes back.
Yeah, it has the persist when it dies. It comes back and it adds the 2 +1/+1 counters.
Oh, because you copy then the same persist card.
Yeah, so Glenelendra Archmage,
Woodfall Primus.
I wrote
Groan.
because that's counter everything forever. Woodfall Primus, Groan, because that's destroy everything that's not a creature.
Not creature permanents, yeah.
Yeah, so that's maybe a thing, the persist thing, I guess. There's not a ton of them in green and blue, but, you put them in and then you do the thing, I guess.
Yeah, and then if you have cards that care about snow, then you want to, maybe that's a direction you could go as well.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, I did not put it in my Jorn God of Winter deck, so...
It's because Jordan's already the God of Winter. He doesn't need
You don't need no Moriti. All right,
let's move on. We got 4 Morites cards before we got to get out of here.
4 Moriti.
Yeah, we're getting close,
All right, we're getting delirious over here.
Yeah.
The next one is Narfi, Betrayer King.
Sorry, that name is just funny.
I think there's a character named Narfi in like Skyrim or something that people were saying.
Oh, cool.
But it has anything to do with this card. In fact, this looks like the Night King.
It's the White Walker, dude.
Yeah. All right, Narfi, Betrayer King. 3 blue, black, 5 mana for a 4/3 zombie wizard. It's a legendary snow creature.
Okay.
Other snow and zombie creatures you control get +1/+1. So Snow Anthem, Zombie Anthem. And then it says you can pay 3 snow mana and return Narfi from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Okay. That's actually nice. Wait, 3 snow mana, get them back? You can just hack. Zombie decks are always sacking and stuff.
I think you can safely assume that a deck with Narfi in it is going to have mostly snow permanents. Snow lands.
Snow lands, yeah.
Maybe not all, but mostly. So that really just kind of reads 3 mana.
3 mana past it, yeah.
Love it. The first thing I thought of was, well, if you create infinite mana, then you can sack and recur Narfi forever.
Okay.
Now, infinite snow mana is a little bit harder to do because like Ashnod's Altar, Phyrexian Altar,
they make regular mana.
Regular mana. Unless you could turn them into snow permanents, then I think they make snow mana, which there are a few cards that do that. But Commander's Quarters, Mitch at Commander's Quarters had an interesting combo he talked about with this card, which is you use Intruder Alarm,
which is a creatures don't untap during the creature's untap step, but whenever a creature enters the battlefield, untap all creatures.
And then you use Cormus Bell.
4-mana artifact, all swamps are 1/1 black creatures that are still lands.
So you turn your snow-covered swamps into creatures, and you have Intruder Alarm out, so now you sack Narfi, pay the 3 snow mana, and then taps all your lands.
Oh, because they're all creatures now.
Yeah, and then you tap them again for mana, and you float all the mana, have infinite, enter the battlefield, so you Blood Artist or whatever.
Yeah. You also wrote here, if you can create infinite mana in black, then why don't you just win any number of other ways that black can, with Torment of Hailfire, Exsanguinate, and yada, yada, yada.
Right. So if you could create infinite mana, then, but the Narfi is a key component of creating the infinite mana in that specific combo, because with the Intruder Alarm, you need a creature to enter to untap all the stuff. So, yeah. But, I mean, you can just Basalt Monolith, Rings of Brighthearth, Torment of Hailfire. If you want to do, like, create infinite mana win, it's definitely possible in a lot of ways. Yeah. Maybe but Narfi does have that combo.
Maybe make, like, a Vorthosy White Walker Game of Thrones Season 8 deck.
That would be cool. It's probably 5 color, and you...
Narfi becomes the Night King.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I like that. I mean, Narfi probably goes into zombie decks, right? Because
for sure,
zombies.
It's a pumper. Yeah.
So, all right.
You have to play snow to really use it, though. I just like the fact that you could sack them and then bring them back for cheap. So if you have ways that if you want to cast your commander a lot in your deck, then this is a great way to do it, because you never have to put them back in the command zone, really.
Yeah, I think at most decks, it wouldn't cost them a lot to just turn their land base into snow mana for the most part for permanent.
At this point, there's so they reprinted
and then just put Narfi in, and really Narfi's your only payoff for that, but it allows you to play it.
Yeah.
All right, 3 to go. We've got Saurolf, Realm Eater. This is a very large dog. This is a large puppy.
At least he's eating, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, 1 black-green, so 3 mana for a 3/3 legendary wolf. Whenever a permanent an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Saurolf. So anytime an opponent's permanent is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, only opponents though, not yours.
Fetch lands count?
Fetch lands count, treasures count. Saurolf gets a +1/+1 counter. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if Saurolf has 1 or more +1/+1 counters on it, you may remove all of them. So you can't remove part, you have to remove all the counters or remove none of them. Mm-hmm. But if you do, you exile each other non-land permanent with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of counters removed this way.
Okay.
Exile.
Okay, now we're talking. Please don't play this as your commander, because every game will last forever. It will never end.
Okay, now we're talking, and what I want to say is don't do that.
Don't do it. Well, I mean, the thing is, if you take 3 off, then Saruf gets rid of himself. So
no, it says each other non-land permanent with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of counters this way. Right. So Saurolf will never get rid of himself.
Okay. Yeah, I wrote that wrong. Yeah, the Pernicious Deed is the closest comparison to this, but that's just destroying artifact creatures and enchantments with CMC X or less. I think you're playing this in the Gave deck for sure, because you can just manipulate how many counters go on there. Gave is a 5-mana commander, so you can always just take off 4 and just wipe everything else out. And you can.
Well, that's great. Yeah.
Your creatures that were going to die anyway, you just put those back onto Saruf afterwards. Like by sacking them and making them 1/1 counters again.
Yep. You put Tyam down, which also like removes counters and does stuff, brings things back too. So stuff that has died or whatever. Nesting Grounds is a land that allows you to sort of move counters.
Oh, right.
So because you might want the counters to be at a specific amount on Saurolf, because you're, like you said, I have a 5-drop. I want it to be 4 so that sticks around. And you probably want to have, in general, a little bit higher CMC stuff, just because it's going to be easier to sort of push the button on Saurolf at lower amounts. And that's going to be when people are less afraid of it, maybe. Because they're going to have to crack fetch lands and treasures and stuff, right? So at a certain point, like Saurolf getting like 1 or 2 counters, you're not going to have to do much. They're going to do it for you.
Yeah, and it's also, more importantly, it gets rid of so many important things like mana rocks. Like 2 mana rocks are so common, and if you get Saurolf to 2, and that's really not that hard to do. Maybe you like play this in a way where if you're like trying to hold it, like I want to get this to 4, and your opponent has to hold up a fetch land, so when they pass the turn, then Saurolf's trigger goes on the stack, you sack the fetch land, give him another counter, and being like, no, you can't do it. But I don't know, it's just a lot. This to me just seems kind of annoying, because you're just wiping the board. You're exiling the board very often.
Yeah, I mean, I think it happens on the upkeep, so everyone will see it coming, so you get a chance. It's not like you can play this and ever have it happen that turn. Now, you could flash it in, but if you flash it in, it probably doesn't give very many counters, right? So that's not even sort of exploitable in that way. So it is at least like a time bomb that we can see and maybe do something about. So I think if there's Sarulf decks in your meta, you're going to have to learn to play a lot more interaction because otherwise those games are just not going to be fun. But what's probably going to happen is your playgroup will learn and then kill this thing often. Other cards I think this deck will probably play is like all the edict effects, especially the instant speed ones, because here's what you want. You want everybody to be looking at Sarulf, no counters on it. I feel good. I'm going to play this. Is anybody going to play a fetch line or anything? Nope, I'm not going to. Is anybody going to crack any treasure or anything? Nope, I'm not going to. Okay, then I feel safe playing a couple things. Let's just make an agreement. We're not going to kill each other's stuff until Sarulf is dead. Okay, that sounds good. And now on end step, you go Liliana's Triumph, Soul Shatter, Tribute to the Wild, Vonus Hunger, something like that. And everyone's like, crap, everyone has to sacrifice a creature, or everyone has to sacrifice an enchantment. And then it's boom on the end step, and now you go exile everything, and they didn't see it coming because they couldn't see the counters on it.
Yep.
That's, I think, a play pattern that's going to be real brutal.
Yeah, you don't want to have it on board like treasures or lands that people know you're going to get rid of to pump those numbers up. This just kind of feels like a headache to me, though, because you just have to watch the math constantly. How many can you do? And from their hand, are they going to do it? Do they have onboard effects? Are other people going to potentially lose something? What if someone tries to kill a creature on someone's end step? That's going to add something to Sarulf, too.
Yep.
Yowza.
Yowza. I think you probably want to play a bunch of board wipes that you can control the size of. So Toxic Deluge, Black Sun Zenith, Pestilence, these are all really good because they allow you to choose the size of the board wipe to not kill Sarulf. And remember, Sarulf will get bigger over time. So often it's going to be like a 7/7 or 8/8. Yeah. You're like, Toxic Deluge for 6. Kills everything. Now it's like a 15/15. And you might even just swing with it and not do the exile thing depending on how everything looks.
Because it's May. Yeah.
So something we wrote down here is if you just go to EDH Rec and type in Grismold, the Dread Sower, that's a good way to sort of look at a bunch of cards that Sarulf might want because Grismold kind of wants similar things to kill your opponent's creatures a lot.
Yep.
This is going to be powerful. I do agree with you, though. It's going to be a slog. I think anytime you see this in somebody's command zone, you're like, okay, this game's going to be tough. And I probably don't want to be playing a creature-heavy deck. And I got to hold my interaction and kill Sarulf the first 2 times it comes out if I can.
Yeah, I think at that point, the deck is kind of like, you turn it off, right? Like, it's gone at that point.
Well, if it has a lot of board wipes like Toxic Delusion and stuff like that, it's still going to be able to stick around, right? And it's going to have all the land ramp and stuff from green. So I think the deck will still be a pain in the butt because it's going to be like, okay, fine, I can't play my commander, but I can still wipe the board every turn.
Yeah, and black-green, I've got all the removal in the world.
Yep. All right. Two to go. Next one is Svella, Ice Shaper. 1 red-green for a 2/4 legendary snow creature. It's a troll warrior. All right. 2 abilities. You can pay 3 and tap Svella and create a colorless snow artifact token named Icy Manolith with tap the Icy Manolith, add 1 mana of any color. It creates literal manoliths, but they are snow manoliths.
Okay, Icy manoliths.
Yep. And then it also has a second ability, which is pay 6, a red and a green, and tap Svella, and look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may cast a spell from among them without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So once you've created enough manoliths, so you're like, I don't need mana anymore, I'll just start casting something for free off the top 4 cards of my library. That seems good.
Yeah, this reminds me of Eric Smethies because it's all about like make mana, and then boom, now that it's unlocked or Eric Smethies has awoken from their slumber, then you can kind of go nuts and do like the Golos thing a little bit.
Yep.
It does cost a lot though, 8 mana. It's kind of cool that you can make a manolith every turn, but I feel like you got better things to do with your mana.
Yeah, I mean, the ability to make a manolith is good because it starts to fuel itself, but it's slow to get going, I agree. And then the tap part of it keeps it in check pretty well. Maybe they learn from like Thrasios and stuff.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah, because if it was like pay 8, do the thing, I think that's way worse.
Because then you could just find ways to go infinite, and then you're casting your whole library.
Now you're just like, if I have infinite mana, I just kind of cast my whole library. Whereas this is like, I need to be able to untap this thing to really go off, which is harder, which I think puts this in a really nice power level place. I don't think it's possible for a Svella deck to be a 9 or a 10, which is great because you can just build it the most optimized it can be, and it's probably right in the 7-8 range, which I like.
Yeah, and then you get Eldrazi cast triggers if you're trying to go big with that because it says cast, not put onto the battlefield, which is typically what you see with green decks when they cheat stuff out. So like Kozilek or Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, both are cast.
And you get the cast those for 8 mana.
Yeah.
If you know they're there, maybe you want some top deck manipulation, or you put down Worldly Tutor type of stuff to guarantee you know what's there. Yep.
There's a card called Skred in an old deck called Skred Red. It's a red instant, deals damage to target creature equal to the number of snow permanents you control, and you're making Icy Manoliths. Yeah, it's not as exciting.
Parallel Lives is still good. You'll make 2 manoliths.
Yay.
I think 2 manaless for 3 mana is actually really good.
Yeah,
that's different because you get 2 of the mana back. So it actually only costs you 1 mana to make 2 manaliths, which starts to become nuts. Stuff like Rime Tender, you want, which is an untapper for snow permanents. I think this deck wants a lot of untappers because not only do you want to untap your lands and use it again, you also want to untap Svella so that you can tap Svella multiple times. So Seedborn Muse, Wilderness Reclamation, Curse of Bounty is the curse that allows you to untap stuff.
Well, yeah, when you attack that player, yeah.
Or when anybody attacks that player, yeah. Instill Energy, Nature's Chosen is a way in green to untap creatures.
Yeah. I haven't seen this card in forever.
1,000-Year Elixir. So you can kind of maybe get to the point where you're making multiple manaliths per turn. And once you're doing that, it's easier to keep doing it because the extra manaliths all of a sudden... Itself. Yeah, exactly. So I think it could snowball out of control, but it'll take a little while to get going. Illusionist Bracers is another one that doubles up activated abilities. So you can make 2 manaliths, and then once you have enough mana, you're doubling up the part where you're casting the top 4 or the best card of your top 4 cards.
I like what you wrote at the end. Take advantage of having a bunch of artifacts, these icy manaliths. You play Molder Slug. It's a creature that says at the beginning of each player's upkeep, they sacrifice an artifact.
Yeah.
That could be backbreaking for a lot of those decks that need their ramp or, and even if they're losing a Soul Ring or whatever, or a 2 mana rock.
And you're I'm basically losing 3 mana.
Yeah.
Because I'm just creating...
You're just making another one. Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, I think that's actually... I'm kind of excited about this deck in that it will sit at exactly the right power level. I used to play basketball a lot. I talk about that on the show. And the funny thing was, for when I was shooting 3-pointers, I knew that if I was like about 3 inches behind the 3-point line, I was actually a little more accurate than I was if I was right at the 3-point line.
Oh.
And that was because at 3 inches back, I knew I could just throw it as hard as I could. Like, it was I didn't have to
You weren't trying to precision it in, right?
This is just chuck it as hard as I can, and that's the right range from here. Whereas if I'm a half a step forward, I have to actually think about their exact right amount of pressure to throw the ball up at.
I see.
And so I like commanders that are kind of like that too, where I can just build this as powerful as I want.
It's not going to break.
And the most powerful this thing can be doesn't seem like it's ever going to be a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that, actually. That's cool. So they don't have to feel bad about optimizing, because it always sucks when you also bring a deck that can be optimized, but you're like, I under-optimized it to make it. It's like, yeah, but the commander's still so strong.
Everyone's just mad and going to kill it because they're scared of it.
Yeah, or they're just scared. Yeah, the scary part.
Yeah, I don't care what you say about your Urza deck. They're killing it first.
I don't care what you say about your Coma deck. Yeah. Right? It doesn't matter how little you optimize that sucker.
All right, the next one is, and it's the last one for today, it's Vega the Watcher. It's a cute little owl. It looks like the Harry Potter owl.
I do love Harry
Hagrid?
Hagrid?
No, Hagrid's the guy. Hedwig.
Hedwig, yeah.
It was close. Hagrid.
Yeah. It's kind of like a name in the set review, honestly. Who knows? You can
I haven't read those books
ways.
in like 15 years. So. Yeah. All right, 1 white blue for a 2/2 bird spirit, has flying. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, draw a card.
Oh, okay. Well, first, shout out to Tappy Toe Claws. Hopefully we'll show an image here. She did a really awesome makeup look for her reveal of this card. Okay, so there are a bunch of mechanics that work with this, obviously. Flashback, Jumpstart, Impulsive Draw, Foretell, Adventures, Suspend, Escape, Retrace, Rebound, Cascade, Madness. And then there are a bunch of cards that do this thing, like Isochron Scepter allows you to cast it. Future Sight allows you to cast stuff
top
of your library. Sunbird's Invocation. Send triplets out of someone else's hand. That's kind of funny.
Chaos Wand.
Yep.
Also out of somebody's deck.
Torrential Gearhulk and Snapcaster out of your graveyard.
Diluvian Primordial out of other opponents' graveyards.
Yeah, Tygam, Ojutai Master.
That gives rebound to your stuff.
Yep.
Elsh of the Infinite, cast off the top of your library. Savine the Chronoclasm doesn't technically cast stuff out of your graveyard, but cares if you're casting flashback spells, which or cares if you're casting anything out of your graveyard, I think. I was surprised when we made this list how much is on it. It seems very clear to me that you're going to be able to put 50 spells in here that you can that you can cast in some other way than from your hand. And that means most of your stuff is going to draw you a card when you cast it.
Yeah, and it's not bad to have a card cast itself more than once. It's actually great. You're getting value off of that. You're essentially drawing an extra card because you don't need to cast something out of your hand.
And then you're literally drawing an extra card because Vega does that.
Yeah. So Vega seems like a really good enabler for all the decks we just mentioned. The Elsha, Tygam, and Savin, that world of stuff. I don't know if it's as great just by itself.
I think if it's by itself, you're going to have the problem, and you can solve this problem. I just don't know what the solution is. What is this deck doing, right? Because all this... Yeah, it's casting stuff from not its hand, but that just draws you cards.
Yep.
So you need a focal point of what the deck wants to do besides that, because drawing cards is not a plan for the deck, right?
That was what makes white blue so hard, is because they what's their win plan? stacks? Ugh.
Yeah, don't do that. So
don't do that.
Is it like Thassa's Oracle, Laboratory Maniac, because you're drawing so many cards? Again, that's not like a win con that most people love anymore because you've just seen it so much. I'm not judging those people if you're playing CDH or whatever, but winning in the same way all the time is not something a lot of people want to do. So how do you build a deck that's doing something that doesn't feel like it's the same thing every time? But I don't know what the focus of the Vega deck is if not that, because it's like, well, you can Isochron Scepter and do all this stuff and it'll feel cool, but in the end, how are you winning? Maybe if it's Chaos Wand and you're just like, I'm going to use my opponent's cards somehow. Maybe, I don't know if there's enough of that effect though.
Yeah, I think you definitely just want to put this in the 99 somewhere. White blue is just a really tough space.
It is an uncommon one too. It's not necessarily meant to be like the thing. Okay, so that's all 21 of the traditional, regular, non-MDFC commanders from Kaldheim.
More ways to say this than Morit's name, I guess.
Yeah. We didn't talk about the 2 from the mini decks from the pre-cons. Yep. We're going to do those separately when we do the budget upgrade episodes for that. Jimmy, before we go, let's do what we always do here. Split these into 2 categories. We have 2 awards categories today. The first one is most powerful new traditional commander. Just of the 21 we talked about today, the most powerful.
This one seems pretty obvious based on just the amount of time. It's a mix, I think, between Koma and Orvar. Koma, I think, is naturally a little more powerful because it has access to green, but Orvar lets you add green to your deck, basically, because you can turn lands into more lands.
Yeah, I think Orvar is going to be...
Is it Orvar?
Orvar.
Orvar. Sorry, Orvar.
Orvar. Yeah, I would vote for Orvar. I think it's probably the most powerful. There's so many crazy things you can do with it, but I could see it being... Koma's 7 mana also just naturally makes it a little less powerful. It is in green.
Yeah, you could ramp up to that by turn 3 or 4 if you're really going nuts.
Seraph might be in the mix to be able to talk about. Cole, maybe, just because so combo-tastic. If you built the most powerful Cole deck, how fast it could get to the combo, maybe it can beat these other decks. I think those are probably
we're like rating power on a lot of different things now. I don't know.
I would say Orvar is my.
It's definitely the most like shocking of all of them. I was like, whoa. This is
so much cool stuff
else.
You can do.
Yeah.
Which is sad because I don't usually like to pick as my favorite commander what is the most powerful commander or what I think is the most powerful commander.
But that's going to be it for you?
Yeah, Orvar I think is my favorite. I'm pretty excited. And of all the decks, every time we do this exercise, and we do it a lot lately, where we're going through and listing out and researching like all the different synergies and combos for every single legendary in the set. There'll be 1 or 2 where I'm like, get excited to the point where like, oh, I might build that deck.
Yeah.
Orvar's the one for me this time.
Okay. I think the one for me has to be the mono red Magda, Brazen Outlaw. I mean, I did build it for game nights and I had a blast playing it and I like looked at it and went, wow, there's actually a lot of different directions you could take this to. So that's going to be my vote for this episode.
That is a sweet deck too. When I watched you play it, I was like, damn, for a mono red deck, that thing does a lot and it's like a lot of cool stuff.
And treasures. You love treasures.
And you're just doing a lot of stuff. And that I think is fun. I think, one of the reasons mono red doesn't always call to me is that it feels like it's pretty straightforward. But the Magda deck has a bunch of different axes and a bunch of different cool stuff you can do. So I really like that deck.
Yeah.
All right. To the listeners, what do you think about these new non-MDFC, the regular traditional commanders from Kaldheim? Which one of the ones that we talked about today are you most excited to build? Which do you think is the most powerful? Which do you think is your favorite? Do you agree? Do you think Orvar is the most powerful from these? Or do you think one of the other ones is going to end up being stronger?
Do you have a better name than traditional non-MDFC commanders? Because we'd love to know.
Regular commanders, man. That just seems like we're insulting them.
It just seems so bad, yeah. These are the simple commanders. Aww. These ones aren't as special. Look, they're not as special. In fact, they are just as special as MDFCs, and you're going to want to show your love for those special cards by getting them yourself by going to cardkingdom.com/commandzone. You can pick up all of these amazing cards. As you saw, there's the Phyrexian script on that freaking Vorinclex.
Phyrexian Vorinclex. That thing is sweet.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to pick one of those up. And cardkingdom.com/commandzone is where I always do go because their shipping is super fast. They have my product when I need to get it really quickly when I'm building a deck for game nights, or if I just want to be able to play that deck on Spell Taper as quickly as possible. So make sure you use the affiliate link. You're also helping out the show.
Eat your heart out, Craig. Look at that. But that one's not yours. It's mine. Or maybe Jimmy's. Actually, I don't. These cards are actually, they belong to the command zone.
Yeah, we might need them for an episode, so they'll stay here for now.
If you want to get any of the Kaldheim themed stuff that goes onto your playmats, onto your sleeves, onto your deck boxes, UltraPro is the place to go. They not only make the coolest stuff that's themed to every set, they have the licensing agreement with Wizards so that they're able to do that, but they also just make the best stuff to protect your game pieces. Eclipse sleeves, Pro Gloss now, Satin Towers, Mythic Collection, deck boxes. They have the awesome metal dice. They just really have everything to make sure that all your game pieces stay in pristine condition, but also so that your battlefield looks as cool as possible.
Yeah, and it all matches sometimes too.
Yeah, it's the coolest when a new set comes out and you've got the matching playmat, sleeves, and deck boxes for your new deck. That really is, it's like you're all dressed up for a nice night out. You look fancy and classy.
This is one of those sets too with just great art, really cool art, and they've really fleshed out this world.
I'm sure they're going to do some of the showcase art that they did like on these showcase frames, which is a certain art style that looks really, really cool. So yeah, UltraPro really does great stuff. All right, now it's time for the end step where we talk about something cool outside the world of Magic. I'm talking slowly so Jimmy can come up with something.
Looking at my phone. What's on my calendar? Did I watch something recently?
Is there any games that you've been playing recently, Jimmy?
Jeez, I wish I work also as a host on a thing called Venn, which is a gaming network, and I literally don't have time to play games. Have I talked about Hades yet?
We mentioned it the other day, but let's talk about it because I played it.
Okay, yeah. Hades is a really fun game. It's on Switch. It's on PC. It is a game that's made by a company called Supergiant, and they've done a ton of really great games. Bastion, Transistor, really, really well-known games from the past. This is a game that's set in the Olympian universe. You play Zagreus, the son of Hades, and you're trying to escape hell, basically, and your dad's just sort of sitting there laughing at you. And it's a roguelike, which means that every single time you play the game, when you die, you go back from the beginning and start all over again. Now you might think, oh, this is going to be so repetitive or whatever, but the levels change a little bit. You'll go through different sequences of rooms. You also call upon the Olympians for different powers that will help you through. Yeah, so each time you go through,
you have like different abilities.
Yeah, and different weapons too. So it's like almost playing different colors of a Magic deck, and each time you can do it a little differently. There's different strategies you'll take. It's really fun. There's like a bunch of worlds to go through. If you love Olympian like lore and all that stuff, you meet a ton of familiar characters along the way. There's tons of dialogue options. They went deep. I can't imagine what the script looks like for this. I think they have hundreds and hundreds of pages.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun.
You make a lot of choices too. So as you're going, there's like skill trees.
Yeah.
But they're different based on like what gods you're talking to or what weapons you have and things like that. And so each time you sort of replay it, quote unquote, it doesn't feel like you're replaying it. It feels like, almost new levels.
Yeah, totally.
You're like, oh, I'm going to try this skill tree or I'm going to go in this direction this time, So it's actually fairly difficult, which I like. I don't like games that are super, super easy. So it feels like you have accomplishment when you do stuff.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little of like Diablo or a hack and slash 2, which I like that style.
Yeah, it has that same top-down angle.
Yeah.
And it's also called technically a roguelite because every time you complete it or you die, you actually, if you gain any gems or stuff, you actually take that back with you and you can start powering yourself up. So you actually get better and stronger at the game simultaneously, which is a really fun sort of like progression system.
It does make it so that you don't get stuck in any one place for too long, it feels like, which is good. I haven't played it till the very end, so maybe it gets harder later, but like in the early stages,
it's kind of like it doesn't like get massively hard, and by the time you're at that end area, you feel like you're good enough at the game to do it too, which is a really cool feeling, I think.
All right, so Hades, it's on Switch and what else?
Switch, and you can get it on PC, I believe, on Steam. And Epic Games, I think, has it as well.
Yeah, very fun. It's also a game that you can play in short increments, which is ideal for my life right now. I'd never have 4 hours to sit down and play anymore.
Yeah, you're spending the rest of your time figuring out how to pronounce these names.
All right, big thanks to our editing, graphics, and logistics team, which is Craig Blanchett, Manson Lung, Ashlyn Rose, Lady Danger, Jake Boss, Josh Murphy, Alfred Stocktra, Patrick Nan, Sam Waldo, Arthur Meadowcroft, and Jordan Pridgeon.
They're all so great. And big thanks, as always, to Geoffrey Palmer. He does the living card animations that start our show, sometimes live behind us on set. You can find him on Twitter at livingcardsmdg.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. We got game nights coming up, and we also have our set review, which don't forget, we're going to be announcing the game nights audition winners for Patreon and Kickstarter.
Yay.
So, yeah, you're going to want to check that out. Even if you didn't enter, you're going to want to see what the audition looked like from those who did win, right? So that you can win next time.
Ooh, that's smart.
Yeah.
It's like gaming the system.
Speaking of next time, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
For your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com. or ask us on Twitter at JFWong and at Josh Lee Kwai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.